would like to call to order this Parks Board public hearing tonight regarding the Church Street Park proposal. I first would like to outline the agenda for the evening. First, we'll have a presentation of the Church Street Park proposal, and I'll read that who's presenting here in a minute. Then we'll open up for public comment, where everyone will have 3 minutes per person, and we will stick strictly to that to come up to the mic and talk. After this is done and we're finished, the next step for the Parks Board is to have a Parks Acquisition Committee to discuss the decision. And that committee will not be in our normal Park Board meeting. We're going to do it as a separate meeting. That should be determined tomorrow when that is. We're trying to align schedules. And I wanted to mention that. So the presentation tonight, before we open up for public comment, is the project summary. Brian Kelsey from the Mayor's Office will be first. Then we'll have Ann Harvard, Permanent Supportive Housing and Service Center. She will discuss that. Tony Giarratana from Giarratana LLC will discuss the proposal. The land swap agreement from Metro Attorney Tom Cross, and then Monique Odom, our Parks Director, will discuss the new park at 301 James Robertson Parkway. And so that is the agenda for that. That should take about 30 minutes is the plan. I encourage the Park Board members during the presentation to stop and ask questions. This is our chance to ask questions, and I think it's better to do it during the presentation. So we talked about that earlier, and I think that would make for a healthier discussion. So having said that, we'll welcome Brian Kelsey up to the podium to talk, give us a project summary.
Good evening, members of the board, Director Odom and your staff. I'd like to thank you guys for making time.
I made one mistake. I wanted to recognize 3 council members that are in attendance. I'm sorry, Brian.
Go ahead.
Council members John Cooper, Angie Henderson, and Berkeley Allen. Am I missing anybody? Are here in attendance. And if you would like to speak tonight, for out of councilmatic courtesy, we'll ask that you go first in the public before the public hearing. So I'm sorry, Brian. So
it's okay.
Carry on.
Thanks very much for coordinating this public hearing, and I want to express my appreciation to all the council members and the many members of the public who are here to express their positions on this important proposal. What we're going to do is spend about 30 minutes, as the chair discussed, laying out some of the contours of this proposal and giving an opportunity for people to ask questions. Let me start by kind of zooming out and talking about why we are proposing this. There's been a lot of discussion of the details, but I want to make sure it's very clear about why the administration is supporting this proposal. According to the Metro Homeless Impact Division, there are more than 1,000 people experiencing homelessness in the downtown area. There's been a lot of discussion lately about what is or is not a crisis when it comes to affordable housing, but I hope that everybody in this room can agree that this is a crisis that must be addressed for more than 1,000 members of our community. So why are we in that situation? Well, first and foremost, there's an insufficient housing and services downtown, and that has adversely impacted public spaces, including Church Street Park and the library. We have some amazing service providers that really go above and beyond to provide services downtown, but it's just not enough capacity. And when you think about what solves homelessness, homes do. And so that's really what's at the heart of this proposal. Metro, just a little bit about the timing here, about how this all came together. When former Mayor Barry came into office, her team had started exploring possible solutions and looking at the feasibility for developing permanent supportive housing, which Ann Harvard will explain what that's all about here in a bit, and a co-located service center. And Tony Giarratana stepped up and proposed a way to help make it happen. That's how this came together. It's been improved, I think, over the last years. We've taken feedback and input from people, and we can talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But bottom line here, this is a good deal for Metro and the city. If you look at the net benefit to Metro, it's about $6 million on the proposed land swap and the proposed improvements to Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard. And that doesn't even take into consideration the no-cost development services offered by Giarratana LLC for the Permanent Supportive Housing and Service Center, or the new tax revenue that would be produced or created by new development on 600 Church Street. We have a severe shortage of housing available for people at 0 to 30% income, especially in the downtown area, and this is a creative way to deal with it. So what exactly is being proposed? This is the language from the agenda item. The Mayor's Office and Giarratana LLC have requested board approval for the swap of 2 parcels of land known as Church Street Park and 301 James Robertson Parkway, and acceptance of a $2 million payment from Giarratana LLC for development of a new park at 301 James Robertson Parkway. Let me just try to orient. I'm sorry, this may be a little bit hard to see here on the map, given the contrast in the colors here. But let me just make sure everybody's kind of oriented appropriately on the geography here. So moving left to right, this is essentially the proposal. There are 3 parcels that are of interest here. There's, of course, 600 Church Street, 301 James Robertson Parkway, and if you can imagine yourself kind of walking out of Music City Central and going east on Charlotte, it is the triangular parking lot property that is immediately east of the Sunday School Publishing Board building, to kind of orient everybody to where that is. The 3rd parcel of interest here is 505 2nd Avenue North. This is a Metro-owned piece of property that's currently being used to, the construction trailers are on there for staging for the new sheriff facility, but it is basically a surface level parking lot unused at the moment that is Metro-owned. The proposed land swap, middle map here, would be 301 James Robertson Parkway for 600 Church Street, and the final result would be public green space on 301 James Robertson. Metro would, of course, still own the 505 2nd Avenue North, where the Permanent Supportive Housing and Service Center would be built. Giarratana LLC would assume ownership of 600 Church Street, and then there's Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, which I know Mr. Giarratana will talk about in detail here in a little while. I wanted to put all of the financial information in one place here. And kind of explain some of the different numbers. I know it's been a little confusing. We've tried to sort of go above and beyond on the transparency here, and as we get information, make it available immediately to both the board members and the public. So let me go through the appraisal history here. There were 2 sets of appraisals. Appraisals were originally done last November, and so that's what was in that original one-page summary of the project. 600 Church Street was appraised at 3.65. 301 James Robertson Parkway was appraised at 3.37 last November. This summer, BL 2018-1282 as amended was passed. That was legislation that governs the way that Metro has to do appraisals when Metro-owned property is involved. So we ordered new appraisals when that legislation was passed. I got them last week and made them available the same day to the public and to you all. And really, and I think, Tom might be able to explain this a little bit when he gets to his portion. The idea here is to come up with a current value and a prospective value, taking into consideration what is known about possible development activity on a site. So the new appraisals, as of October 12th, had 600 Church Street at 3.95 and had 301 James Robertson Parkway at 3.68. Prospective valuation on 600 Church Street went to 4.62, and on 301 James Robertson Parkway stayed the same at 3.68. And, I posted the full appraisal, so you all hopefully had a chance to read through the assumptions the appraiser made. And I imagine there will be some questions about that later, and we can deal with those when we get to that portion. So if you look at the financial summary, doing the land swap, Metro would take ownership of 301 James Robertson at 3.68. You would have the $2 million payment from Giarratana LLC for the new park at 301 James Robertson. Up to $5 million has been committed by the developer for improvements to Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, and if you sum that up, that's about 10.68. You subtract the value, and the prospective value, of 600 Church Street at 4.62, and you get a net benefit to Metro on this deal of about $6 million approximately. And that does not factor in the at least $1 million worth of no-cost development service that the developers offered on the permanent supportive housing development, and does not take into consideration the new tax revenue that would be generated at any proposed development at 600 Church Street. So just looking at the deal as is, take away any kind of tax revenue forecast, take away the no-cost development services on the permanent supportive housing, this is still a good deal for Metro. I'm going to turn this over to Ann Havard now, who's very briefly going to talk about permanent supportive housing. I don't know, Chair, if you want to ask questions of my section or if you want to let Ann go, and then we can kind of finish out this portion and you can do questions.
Any questions, Jeff?
I'll leave that up to you.
Defer to you. I've got a lot of questions, but if you want to wait until all of them present.
Maybe we should all present. That sounds
Okay.
okay.
Thank you, Brian. As Brian said, my name's Ann Havard. I'm the Mayor's Senior Advisor for Economic Opportunity. Thank you all so much for giving us the chance to talk about this proposal today. Over the last few years, we've seen a drastic increase in the number of people that are not in shelters or housing, actually a 200% increase in outdoor homelessness since 2014. As Brian mentioned, many nonprofits are serving a significant portion of this population, but their capacity cannot meet the growing demand. The Metro Homeless Impact Division and the director of that division, Judy Tackett, is here. Thank you, Judy. Metro Homeless Impact Division, formerly known as the Homelessness Commission, has explored several innovative solutions to street homelessness and is currently working with community partners to improve housing navigation through a coordinated entry system and better data about homelessness. However, there is still an urgent need for housing units that are available for people experiencing homelessness, as well as a location that can serve as a place for service navigation, meeting basic needs, and more effectively moving clients through the housing navigation process. The proposed land swap, along with up to $25 million of general obligation bonds approved for affordable housing, would enable the development of a LEED certified building with at least 100 units of permanent supportive housing and an accompanying service center for people experiencing homelessness. Additionally, this building would include office space for the Metro Homeless Impact Division. This project is truly unique and innovative, co-locating two different programs like the Service Center and permanent housing is a rare model, though we have seen successful outcomes for clients and cost reductions in other cities like Portland and Seattle. We also know that stakeholder engagement is a really important part of the way that we design services to work best for people. Over the last year, Metro has engaged a number of service providers like Room in the Inn and the Mission and many others, and people with lived experience of homelessness to identify gaps in existing services downtown for the homeless population and to brainstorm solutions on street homelessness. Their feedback and that inventory of services highlighted a clear need for permanent housing and a service center as proposed. So what exactly is permanent supportive housing? I know y'all are a Parks Board and you may not be very familiar with this. Permanent supportive housing combines low barrier, affordable housing, health services, and supportive services to allow people who have been homeless to maintain housing stability. Permanent supportive housing is a nationally proven model with the goal of increasing housing for folks that have been homeless and providing the services on site that will allow them to stay in housing. So case management, health services, and things like that. The downtown service center that would be located on the same site as well would serve as a location where people experiencing homelessness can access some of those basic services that we do need downtown, like storage and bathrooms and showers. Most importantly, the service center will serve as a key hub for Nashville's coordinated entry system, where people experiencing homelessness can get on the path towards housing. So through this project, we will increase the number of people that are connected to homeless services and moving into housing. This is specifically important for that growing population of people that are outside and disconnected from housing and services. And it's not just important for housing outcomes, it's a life-saving intervention. For those who are able to access permanent supportive housing units, we expect to see strong housing retention rates, where tenants are able to maintain their housing status rather than falling back into homelessness. We also expect to see cost reduction in emergency services and jail costs, consistent with other cities that have invested in permanent supportive housing. This project will decrease street homelessness through increased access to services and low-barrier housing solutions, serving as a key vehicle for our city's efforts to end homelessness in Nashville. Thank you.
And to just summarize, before I turn this over to Mr. Giarratana here, there are really sort of four general points, I think, that we want to emphasize as we go throughout this evening and talk about this proposal. One is affordable housing. This is desperately needed 0 to 30% income housing in the downtown core, and this proposal would create at least 100 units of it. Park access. This is very important. So I know in Plan to Play, and I'm sure top of mind for everybody in here, is park access. Would park access be decreased or harmed in any way as a result of implementing this proposal? So I asked Metro Planning to do an analysis and look at a 10-minute walk radius to determine if there would be any adverse impact on access as measured by that metric in Plan to Play. And what they came up with is there would be no net loss of park space, so parcel for parcel, no net loss of park space or negative impact overall on access for downtown residents. And if you do the 10-minute analysis, it would have no effect on access to any park. And would also, if you compare the 10-minute walk time to 301 James Robertson to 600 Church Street, would actually increase the number of residents within that 10-minute walk time by 24%. So in our view and Metro Planning's view, this actually improves access according to that metric. Historical significance, the property is immediately adjacent to the Sunday School Publishing Board property. We feel like designing a new park with plenty of community input would provide some opportunity there to tie in the historical importance of that Sunday School Publishing Board property to possibly the witness walls, which are right adjacent on the courthouse, and you have got the 301 property in between there. We feel like there's a lot of possibility there from a design standpoint. And finally, the streetscape. Activating Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard would create an attractive pedestrian-friendly corridor from Downtown Library to Legislative Plaza. And as I mentioned earlier, the developers offered up to $5 million in order to do that with plenty of input from downtown residents and the community there. So I'm going to stop there and turn this over to Mr. Giarratana to go through some of the proposal.
Thank you. Evening. My name is Tony Giarratana. I'd like to start by making a couple of remarks, and I've printed them out for you so you don't have to worry about trying to make notes in case I happen to say something worth hearing. I've been a resident in Nashville since 1984, and almost since then been working on developing downtown Nashville, particularly the Church Street corridor, which I've spent several decades trying to revitalize. Some months ago, I began discussions with Metro about some very critical and complex issues affecting our downtown core. Since completing the first apartment tower in 1998 and first condo tower in 2006 in the core, we've seen an explosion in our downtown residential scene. In fact, the Nashville Downtown Partnership recently put the number of full-time downtown residents at more than 11,000. In the span of a few short years, downtown has been transformed from a work and tourism-only location to a thriving residential neighborhood where people can truly live, work, and play. Church Street has been transformed into a bustling thoroughfare with new restaurants, shops, and residential living anchored by our downtown public library. Along with the many changes on Church Street over the years have come challenges, and some have not been addressed and compound daily. These challenges include a continued lack of temporary housing and services for our homeless population, an underutilized Metro Park space, and the long-neglected Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard connector between Capitol and the library. Working with Metro, we have developed a plan that provides 100+ units of temporary housing and services for our homeless, creates a new park on James Robertson Parkway, redevelops and revitalizes the potential of Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, and provides housing for another 300 or so downtown residents, and adds $3 million in annual incremental tax revenues to Metro's coffers, a third of which I understand goes to schools. I believe this proposal elegantly addresses these challenges and represents a real and significant step forward for each one. Let me briefly describe each of the 4 components of the proposal, and I'm sorry if I'm overlapping a bit with Brian and Ann's comments. Metro has budgeted up to $25 million for construction of a homeless service facility at 505 2nd Avenue North. The facility will include space for intake and case management, bathrooms, showers, storage, and staff offices with 100-plus units of permanent supportive housing above. I have agreed to develop the project for no fee. Typical fees for a project like this are in the 4 to 5% range or more of total costs, so this represents a savings of over $1 million to Metro. A new park will be created at 301 James Robertson Parkway, which also fronts on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, on land that I currently own but propose to swap for the land on Church Street. I will also provide $2 million in cash, which is Metro Parks' estimate of what would be required to build a new park, for Metro Parks to develop this new park. For those of you who may not know its history, the question of how to develop Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, formerly known as Capitol Boulevard, has been a topic of discussion for more than 100 years. As part of this package, I will provide up to $5 million in cash and lead the redevelopment of this thoroughfare, with the Nashville Civic Design Center taking the lead on gathering public input for the boulevard's final design. In my own mind, I see amenities like cafe-style seating, a dog run, and vibrant retail businesses on the ground floors of the 7 buildings fronting the boulevard. But I am sure there will be many great ideas for transforming that street. For the property on Church Street, I propose a 750-foot tall tower that will offer 200 luxury condominium units. This residential project will be built without tax incentives or other Metro subsidies. When complete, it will provide homes for approximately 300 new downtown residents and generate over $3 million in new property tax revenue for Metro. Let me reiterate, this proposal requires no Metro tax breaks. I have waived our traditional fees for development of the homeless facility. I will contribute $2 million towards building the new park, and I will contribute up to $5 million toward the redevelopment of Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard. The land swap involves 2 parcels of similar size and value. At the end of the day, we'll have the same amount of park space as we do today. In addition, Metro will have a new facility for providing assistance to our homeless. We will have redeveloped Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, which is the front door of the main public library. And we will have new residents and tax revenues that continue to build on the inner core neighborhood. My proposal provides a positive solution to a complex group of issues with a positive net value to Metro and the taxpayers of this city. I believe this is an opportunity to create a highly successful public space that will serve downtown residents, office workers, tourists, and local visitors to our downtown neighborhood. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'm available to answer any questions that you might have. Should I sit and wait for Tom, or should I stand?
Tom, let's go ahead and then we'll open up for questions.
I will be brief. And there's not a whole lot left to say about the contract at this point, but I do think it's worth pointing out a couple of things just to remind the board of what the portions that are really relevant to your consideration. This is a fairly standard real estate agreement in that respect. We're going to be, if it's approved, we would be conveying one piece of property to Mr. Giarratana to develop, and he would be conveying a piece of property back to us, plus $2 million. That's really what the Parks Board has got to consider. Now, there's more there to take into consideration, but at the end of the day, the Parks Board, under the charter, makes a recommendation to the council basically as to whether the proposal that's in front of you furthers your mission to provide park and recreational opportunities to people who live here and visit. So that's it in a nutshell. There, aside from the land swap, there are 2 other pieces here that are interesting and important, but not necessarily within your scope. One of those is the work that is proposed for Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, which is obviously it's in the same area as the current park on Church Street. And although it hasn't been designed yet, the vision is to add some green back there that would be disappearing if the Church Street Park gets developed into a high-rise. The other thing is the development of the Homeless Services Center. I'd like to give my own take on exactly how that's going to unfold. This is a piece of property that Metro already owns, and Mr. Giarratana is actually not guaranteed to do anything with respect to this project. Metro is going to issue a request for proposals likely for the design and construction of that building. He will have the right to propose on it. If he doesn't win that award, he has offered to provide some development oversight work for free for Metro. So that is the extent of his role if he doesn't win the competition for the design and construction of that building. I would like to make one other comment. At your October Parks Board meeting, there was some discussion about whether this might constitute a public-private partnership. And one of the first iterations of the project, this has changed form several times since last spring, or maybe go back an entire year. And one of the original proposals was for Mr. Giarratana to build the Homeless Services Center on the piece of property on James Robertson Parkway. In that context, that probably might have been accurately described as a public-private partnership, but that's not what's going on now. This is simply an exchange of real estate with some money changing hands, a promise to do some work on Dallas Dudley Boulevard, and to provide some assistance to Metro in connection with the construction of the Homeless Services Center. And I, too, would be happy to answer questions for you.
Director Odom, if you want to give a brief overview of the new park, and then we'll open up for questions.
Sure. So the proposed park at 301 James Robertson Parkway, I will give an overview of what the process in general would look like in terms of development, which is a general process that we use here at the Parks Department. So there would be, we would design a scope for development. We'd put out an RFP for competitive design, for a contract for solicitation. If there was already a vendor in place, we could potentially use that vendor, a Metro vendor. We could potentially use that vendor. Then there would be initial site investigation and data collection and survey. After that, community engagement, and that's round one of community engagement. After that would be schematic design. And then after that, some cost estimating. Then another round of community engagement, then design development and cost estimate update to make sure we tweak the costs as best we can. Then another round of community engagement, which would be round three, and that would most likely be looking at a final plan for the location. Then we go to bid document development and permitting, and then another round of cost estimating, then construction bidding, that would be a request for a proposal, and then move to construction. So generally, just dealing with the factors and dynamics that are in place. In general, it would be, could be a year of planning and then a year of construction. There's nothing predetermined of what would go on the site. I understand there is some historical significance, and so we absolutely would consult the Historical Commission on what would be appropriate to acknowledge the history there.
Before we open up for questions, I want to recognize Councilman Freddie O'Connell, who I see came in, and Vice Mayor Jim Shulman is here. Just a quick question, Tom. So you said it's use the word as just a recommendation from the Park Board, because I think it has to pass the swap would have to pass the Park Board to come to Council.
Council can actually overrule your recommendation.
Okay. But don't we have to pass it first to come to Council? That's always been my understanding.
You could submit a negative recommendation, and they could still decide to do it. I cannot think, I was wondering on the way over here whether I had ever seen that happen, and I can't recall that the council has ever overruled the Parks Board recommendation. But at the end of the day, the charter provision says you make a recommendation, and the council could choose to abide by that or not.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So I'll open up for questions now.
Can we start with Mr. Kelsey?
Sure.
And maybe and go in order.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's a good idea. Okay.
So for all of us here, explain the status of the homeless center. It was my understanding that the council approved dollars to build it, and it was already in the capital budget to go construct the homeless center. Is that not the case?
Council approved 25 million GO bonds last year, and in the capital improvements budget, there's a line item there that I don't have the reference number for at the time for up to $50 million in affordable housing.
So that project has been approved by council and could be built?
No. So if, depending on the outcome of this proposal, all of this will then go to council as a package. So they would still have to approve the permanent supportive housing and service center, just like any other aspect of this agreement. That end of this proposal has not gone to council yet. The funding has been approved for it.
Okay. All right.
So, to clarify, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It won't be built if this doesn't happen? There won't be a homeless service center, even though there's been money allocated for it?
So we still have the funding to do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, if this proposal didn't move forward, we could still do it. The challenge would be, it would be at a much higher cost. As Mr. Giarratana explained, he's willing to forego a development fee for this. If we decide to do this on our own, not as part of this proposal, I'm assuming that offer is off the table, and that we would be paying that development fee to somebody else. That could have any number of ramifications on the projects, including fewer housing units. And so
talking
that's why
about
we're
the
looking at this as a
difference
proposal.
between $25 million and $26 million because of the development fee.
So
So the city would make the decision to do it or not do it based on $1 million?
So let me do another clarification here. So it's up to, we're authorized to do up to $25 million. So it could come in at 20, it could come in at 18. It's going to depend on, Ann's done a lot of work trying to get a lot of people organized to help provide input for what that service center, both the design and what the services will be offered inside. All of that has to be worked out and would have an impact on the final cost.
So I think it's important for everyone in the room and this particular board to understand why the city elected not to go with a RFP process. So can you help explain that?
Sure, it's a good question. I'm going to let Tom Cross handle that first, and then if you'd like follow up from me, from our perspective, I'll be glad to give it to you.
I'm not sure there's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There really hasn't been an election made. The council's not required to use an RFP process. At the end of the day, the council considers legislation and decides whether it's in the best interest of the city to do it or not, based on a similar set of factors that you're considering too. So they're not required to use an RFP process. I will note that one of your policies requires you to use one or encourages you to do so in one specific context, but it doesn't apply here. So this is a proposal that was brought to us and has been changed over the past several months into what's before you now.
So did the city consider the logical next door neighbor of 4 parcels to say maybe that's the potential highest and best use and highest price and go to that person as you were negotiating with Mr. Giarratana?
The council can always direct us to do that now if they choose. But right now, this is the proposal that the administration is seeking the Parks Board's recommendation on, and will be put before the council. And they can always say, we've got a different vision, or we don't want to do it. We think you should do something else. That's always up to them.
You did mention in your remarks something about a bid process.
Yes.
What was remind us
I
what that
doubt
was.
it's going to be a straight bid process, but we would probably issue a request for proposals for people to submit proposals to design and construct the homeless services center. The agreement with Mr. Giarratana permits him to submit a proposal, but he's not guaranteed of winning it.
And that's different than the development services that he's offering?
He's offering, even if he doesn't win it, to provide some assistance to us that has quite a bit of value. Now, I assume that if he's anxious enough to get the project, his proposal is likely to be very competitive too.
Mr. Kelsey? So help this committee understand, we've got the public square park where the city spent a bunch of money, put a garage under the ground. It's a great park. If I'm correct, that's 1/10 of a mile away from the new proposed James Robertson Parkway Park. So why do we need an additional park there, given the one we've just spent a bunch of money to improve?
Well, I think any time you can look at the possibility of developing a new park, we should consider it, and especially as part of a proposal that's going to result in no net loss. After seeing the analysis that Metro Planning did in terms of the number of people having access to that particular park, I mean, that was honestly a concern of mine until I saw them run the numbers. And to me, when the analysis comes back and says, access will generally be the same, it's not going to hurt downtown overall in terms of access to a park, and I look at all the other ancillary benefits as part of this proposal, to me, that's a convincing argument.
Can you, is the person who did the analysis from planning here to speak to that? Because I'm interested to know a little bit, dig in a little bit more about that. That's our, plan to play 10-minute walk, our charge for our master plan. And so I guess I'm interested in knowing, is that future housing or is that built into the project on Church Street? Is like which timeline are we talking about for the 10-minute walk, and maybe just learning a little bit more about how they did that analysis.
And Jennifer Higgs did the analysis for planning. She is not here. Lee Jones is here and can speak from planning's perspective, but any questions you have about the details of that analysis, I'd have to follow up and get it from Jennifer and then send it on.
But you did say that there's a larger number of residents would be within the 10-minute walk in the new location?
24% more.
Even though we've got the public square park a tenth of a mile away.
Correct.
So I don't know how we pick up 24% more.
You'd have to look at the analysis to see it.
I think we'd like to see that
Do you know
analysis.
if it includes the new 60-story building?
No, she did not include any kind of proposed development on 600 Church Street.
Okay.
No.
So I asked this question at the last meeting.
Sure.
Let's assume we effect this swap. He builds the park, we build the homeless center, and then the apartment tower or condo tower never gets built. So we don't get the incremental tax revenue to fund the debt obligation on the homeless center. Is Mr. Giarratana prepared to guarantee those dollars?
Well, I'm going to let him speak for himself, but let me come back to using additional tax revenue to fund debt service. There is no formal mechanism to do that. I mean, all of that would be subject to council approval. And if you look at the likely increase on debt service on $25 million in GO bonds, you'd be looking at roughly about 1.78 a year. And if you use, I use $200 million for a construction cost, and who knows if this goes through, what will happen on 600 Church Street. I feel like $2 million a year is probably pretty conservative there. But just to be clear, we can't guarantee we're going to take $2 million tax revenue and move it over here and pay for debt service. The reason we included that as part of the information packet was just to give you an idea about kind of what the net impact would look there and how it might affect the operating budget for Metro.
But you are using that as one of the salient benefits for our consideration is that incremental tax revenue.
I would, it's definitely a benefit. I'm not sure it's a primary benefit in this case. I think the 100 units of permanent supportive housing is pretty convincing. But if you'd like Mr. Giarratana to answer this question, I'm sure he'd be willing to step up.
That'd be great.
Okay.
What's the question?
Let's assume the project never gets built on Church. Are you willing to guarantee the otherwise $2 million in tax revenue collections?
No.
Why not just build this project on James Robertson Parkway?
Church Street's my sandbox. If all of you have been on Church Street, you know that we started developing residential on Church Street with the Cumberland. Very pioneering effort under Mayor Bredeson's tenure. Very difficult project. We made exactly $0 on that project. We went on to build the first condo tower in downtown Nashville, which is Viridian. Very successful project. I'll point out that 20% of those units were affordable, sold to buyers that made less than 80% of the median income. We then went on to redevelop the Benny Dillon building into 86 condominium units that were affordable. Many of those units were sold to state legislators that use that as their Nashville home. So Church Street is our sandbox, our most recent building. 505 includes 350 rental units, 193 condominium units, substantially increasing the profile of our city around the country, substantially increasing the tax base of our city, adding substantially 543 residential units to our downtown core. This parcel, along with 2 other parcels that I've been trying to acquire on Church Street for some years, will complete the revitalization of Church Street, and I hope I live long enough to do that. This particular development would add 200 high-end condominium units. I will, as I say that, I know that most people don't care about high-end condominium units. They focus only on the affordable aspect of it. Without a lot of hoopla, we built 50 workforce housing units that we completed along with partner Mike Schmerling, one block north of Charlotte, at the corner of Fisk and Pearl. We received exactly $0 worth of public assistance on that project. 30% of those units are rented to the workforce, which I define as somebody that can pay no more than $9.95 a month. There's a huge number of people that are in that category, and no new product that satisfies that need. We built it, absolutely no public assistance. The 50 units are full, 100% full, and we have a waiting list for those affordable units a mile long. Right across the street from that, we're convening in a couple of weeks with Earl Swenson and Associates, ESA, to develop another 200 units of creative housing for the workforce and affordable category. Again, we expect to request no subsidies for that. We also put together a 39-unit veterans housing project over on 12th Avenue. That project will serve our veterans, many of whom are homeless, and my company is contributing. We contributed all of the planning for that, all the architectural and engineering for that. We will make a $750,000 contribution to that project, which we turned over to MDHA just recently, with no expectation of a return on or a return of that $750,000 investment. And then finally, over on Nolensville, one of the poorest markets in the community, we're working on 5 housing units, 100% philanthropic, with no expectation of ever receiving a return of or a return on those investments. So we are extremely focused on the affordable housing area. We don't take out advertisements about it, but I've got to think we're one of the most active. And I will say that after the article came out about the affordable housing, it suggested that there were developers that do affordable housing that were upset that they didn't get the opportunity to do it. Many of these developers of affordable housing we are partnered with. We are working cooperatively with them on Murfreesboro Pike and other locations to help bring our expertise to them with no expectation of any remuneration to help them do, I hesitate to say better because they do some nice stuff, but to maybe raise the bar a little bit in terms of what can be done in the affordable and workforce housing sector. This is what my company and I have dedicated ourselves to. So we have no interest in owning a 12,000 square foot parcel. We own a 12,000 square foot parcel now over on James Robertson Parkway that nets us $120,000 a year. If we do this swap and it takes you a year to plan, add $120,000 to your coffers, because that's what the parking revenue nets each year, and that would be yours. But our interest in this property is to develop a stunning tower. It may not be 60 stories, but you may recall that 505 received the opportunity. It was a real blessing for us to do up to 750 feet tall. We tried desperately to do a 750-foot tall building, including having the FAA reroute air traffic away from the downtown so that we could have a building up to 750 feet. The reality of the capital markets, which you live with every day, we couldn't convince anybody that Nashville was ready for a 60-story building, and it can only get capital for a 45-story building. the success of 505 has earned us the opportunity to get that capital for a taller building, which we would very much like to do. During the zoning period, we're going to be prepared to roll out our plans. They are stunning. It is a building that Nashville would be very proud of, and it will help advance Nashville on the not just the regional and national front, but on the world stage. It's a world-class building. And so I got off a little bit, Jeff. I apologize, but these are areas that I'm fairly passionate about. And I'm truly happy to answer any question. I saw that this slide was up here. If you don't mind me commenting on that, if that's okay. On the right, you see what Ann Dallas Dudley looks like. Back in 1909, according to Ridley Will's book, beautiful book about the history of Nashville, the citizens of Nashville rose up and said, "Save our state capitol from the back alley of Capitol Boulevard." My late partner, Kermit Stengel, had a photograph in there showing Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard and all the hoopla back in 1909. I suggested to you that it is still a back alley today, and we'd like to make it a dynamic public space. Doesn't have to look like that. If you attended the Nashville Downtown Partnership annual meeting recently, you heard from a man named Dan Biederman. I was very moved by Dan Biederman's presentation, and I asked him to take a walk with me on Church Street after that meeting. And I had just come from Bryant Park. I was just there. And I asked him for all of the information about that. I was so excited, and asked him for a proposal to help us. So he gave me a proposal to help us, because we don't know how to do this as well as he does. And so he's given us a proposal. He's standing by, and it's a $250,000 initial fee to help us come up with a plan for this. In speaking with the Nashville Civic Design Center, they said, "Gosh, hold off there on Dan Biederman. We really like this Clyde Warren Park in Dallas." So I called Dan back and I said, "Hey, I also like to talk to the people that did Clyde Warren Park in Dallas." And he said, "Well, that won't take long because we did that. We started it in 2010. Let me introduce you to the guy who spent the last 7-8 years of his life creating Clyde Warren Park." So I'm anxious for Gary Gaston to come back from Europe so I could share that good news with him. But below is kind of a vignette of what it might look like. On the left-hand side, excuse me, sir. On the left-hand side, you see Ann Dallas Dudley here. Ann Dallas Dudley has a right-of-way of 80 feet wide. To put that in perspective, the right-of-way on Church Street is 50 feet. It's 500 feet long. This creates a 40,000 square foot canvas within which to work. The lanes, the traffic lanes, even if you make them as wide as the interstate highway at 12 feet, that will only take 12,000 square feet of the land. The rest of the land is available for green, landscaping, parks, dog parks, on sidewalk, cafe-style seating, energizing the buildings along that street to go from vacant spaces or underutilized spaces to vibrant retail spaces. That's what we see. And we're prepared to invest $5 million in that. And if we have any left over, I'd like to add to our presentation that if we spend the other $1 million and go into an endowment so we can have somebody like Biederman on contract to keep this a lively, energized place. Because as we learned from Dan Biederman during the Nashville Downtown Partnership presentation, you just can't build it. You have to program it, and you got to manage it and advance it. And that's what we would be very interested in. And why would we do that? Because we love downtown, we love Church Street, and it's in our selfish best interest for Ann Dallas Dudley to be a vibrant urban place right next to our new condominium tower.
So before we open up for public comment, are there any other questions?
I had a question for Monique about the park and the cost. And I know that Mr. Giarratana has offered $2 million. Is that what it would cost? Or, I mean, I know you talked about cost estimates. You don't know exactly, but would that do it for getting a nice park there?
That $2 million is a ballpark. not knowing what features would be there. What we did is compare it to a park in the system or a proposed park in the system right now, what we're projecting to that park to cost. Jefferson Street Park, which is proposed in planning process right now. It's about the same size, and we've estimated about $1.5 million for that, so $2 million is the ballpark cost.
So Monique, if we, the city, were to fund $5 million in improvements themselves for Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard, how do you think that would impact the activity and programming in the current Church Street Park?
I think that the Parks Department would need an infusion of resources to aggressively activate Church Street Park or any other park in the system, and that would be operating dollars.
Okay.
One question that I have has to do with the fact that the new park would be surrounded by roads, and as we're talking about drastically changing other roads and in this transaction, I'm curious if there's been any conversations about shutting down one of those roads, or maybe just how can we address the fact that the new park is an island?
So we have started having some conversations with Public Works about this, about possibilities there, but that's very early on at this point. I wouldn't want to promise anything one way or the other, but it's on our radar, and I think through what Director Odom has in mind and Park staff, what they would lead in terms of a public input process, we would want to wrap all of that into that process, because we are aware of the access issues there. We want to make sure they're addressed.
So, Mr. Kelsey, is the city really not addressing the problem at hand of homelessness, and by doing this, are we just going to shift the problem from Church Street to James Robertson Parkway?
I can't see the future, but I certainly hope that is not the case. I hope that we can have a park that is welcoming and open to everybody and is highly programmed and possibly is able to be tied in to some of the other historical significant elements there with the publishing board building and the witness walls. But again, I mean, I can sit up here and promise you and say, yeah, we're not going to shift anything anywhere, and I don't think that I'm able to do that right now. There are always unknowns.
I have a question for Mr. Cross. You said that there is council does not require RFP process, but there is an instance where Parks does. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, when in your policies, there is one of them that addresses public-private partnerships, mostly where somebody is going to develop something in your park. When part of the tennis facility, I believe at Centennial, was built that way. And when you're going to address something that way, you have a specific process that you encourage yourself to follow, and in that context, it does recommend or it does require that you use an RFP process. If there are a lot of people that want to help you develop something in your park, it makes sense that you would compete it. You're welcome.
If I can comment to Ms. Scott Barnes, Church Street Park has streets on three sides: 6th, Ann Dallas Dudley, and Church Street, with an adjoining building on one side. The proposed park is the same condition. It has James Robertson Parkway on one side and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard on the other, with an existing building on one side. So that, in that respect, they're the same.
What do you think the average speed limit is on James Robertson versus Church Street?
Likely the same. Martin Luther King Boulevard ends there at 3rd Avenue.
Okay.
One of the statements that was made by, I don't remember now which person said it, that this park will need to be highly programmed, the new park. And I guess I'm curious about where the resources for that are going to come from, because that's really what I understand has been the problem with Church Street Park, that we haven't had the resources to highly program it, which would make it more like a Bryant Park. But do we have resources that would come for highly programming it? Well, I thought it was you that said it. Yeah.
I think that was me. I think Director Odom's probably in a better position to answer what the Parks Department has.
Absorb
Right.
programming or operating expenses for that park or Church Street Park, or our budget is very lean, as you all know, and we've talked about quite a bit. So again, we need an infusion of resources to aggressively
In either place.
either place. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I'm going to have to just ask one more question to Mr. Cross. I think you had explained it before, but can you explain again, because I think you were talking fast, about the RFP and why this situation did not require the RFP? I think I just need to understand that again.
And I'm sorry if I spoke too fast, there is a parks policy that addresses when you're engaging in a public-private partnership with somebody who wants to do something in the park. And the only example I can think of off the top of my head is a tennis facility that was built in Centennial, adjacent to the Sportsplex, probably 20 years ago, Mr. Fawcett. It's been a long time. But it addresses that situation, and your policy requires you to use an RFP process to select somebody. The council is not required to use an RFP process to select somebody to do a project like this, to exchange real estate. They ultimately decide what's in the best interest of the city, as you are deciding what best furthers the Parks Board's mission. So they don't have to do it. They can, but they don't always.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the
Okay. I'd like to add something. I think it's important for a city like Nashville that's growing entrepreneurial to encourage entrepreneurship. We have an entrepreneur center, isn't that great? So that we should encourage people to come up with creative new ideas and bring them forth and say, we'd like to proceed on this creative new idea. I don't think it's going to be very encouraging to say, I think the Business Journal wrote an article documenting 2 years worth of meetings I had at the Metro Courthouse. I don't think it's going to be very encouraging for someone to spend 2 years of your life in meetings, hundreds of thousands of dollars in drawings. The very next slides have the plan that we have for the permanent supportive housing project. But after you present that great idea, if it's a really good idea, we're going to let somebody else do it. That's not very encouraging. But I'll tell you that it's okay with me. It's completely okay with me if Metro wants to have a different developer develop the permanent supportive housing. It's completely okay with me. My only goal is to help make the permanent supportive housing happen. And if Urban Housing Solutions wants to do it, or Jeff Haynes wants to do it, or Pat Emery wants to do it, it's completely fine with me. Completely fine. You can have my work with ESA, come up with a plan, use an architect of your choice, come up with a plan. Just do it. Don't tell us why we shouldn't do it or how it shouldn't be done. Just do it. We need it done. Somebody needs to do it, and I'm trying to help. But if Metro wants to have somebody else do it, it's okay. If Metro wants to bid out the park parcel, cool with me. Let me step back. When the property goes on the market, I'll bid. I think I'll be the high bidder. I think the appraisal was $4.6 million for what it's worth, and I'll be happy to bid on that. I'll be a bidder. I'll be a competitive bidder, and let's see if we can bid it all the way up to the $12 million bundle that I've offered Metro with this proposal. I don't think so, but it's okay with me. I'm okay doing the bidding process, but I've worked long and hard with this administration. They've negotiated very tough with me, and each time I went to that meeting in that office, Meg, it got really costly. I wasn't looking forward to a call to come over and visit at the courthouse like I used to. It's very expensive, but it's an attractive proposal. It's about $12 million in value. I'm happy to step back and bid. The appraisal's 4.6. I got lots of juice. I got a lot of way to go, and I'm happy to keep my parking lot. We have a lot of parking assets, and I happen to love parking. So with regard to the competitive bid process, I'm sorry if I've created a problem putting forth a solution to this, but I'm happy for someone else to do these things.
All right, any more questions? So are there any council members here who would like to speak? And then Councilman O'Connell?
Director Odom, Chair Anderson, Parks Board members, thank you all for your service and for the opportunity to share thoughts with you this evening on the proposal to transform Church Street Park. If any of you have not visited the park recently, I do encourage you to do so as you deliberate this issue. This park is unfortunately one of Nashville's few failed public spaces, and I don't say that to diminish the people who are spending time in that park or what they're doing. I say it because we have had public health issues emerge from that park, where the fountain was recently drained in light of the hepatitis A crisis that is happening in Nashville right now. We have had multiple assaults recorded by Metro Nashville Police Department, and frankly, it is a public health and public safety issue, beyond which it also does not equitably serve all of the people who spend time along the Church Street corridor, first and foremost the residents. I have heard a number of suggestions from area constituents who care deeply about the park's future. Some want a dog park. Some want a dog park split with a playground. Some want an arts plaza. Some want the level of activation that we heard about at this year's Nashville Downtown Partnership annual luncheon that Tony mentioned. None want the status quo. I'm here tonight principally to challenge Metro Parks to do better than the status quo. The failure of Church Street Park is not through the action or inaction of a single person or a single department. The park sits at the complicated nexus of what the definition of public space is, how it's challenged when severe inequities collide, how managing it is challenged when multiple jurisdictions collide or overlap. But correcting it begins with the Parks Department. It is a park. Thus far, the level of coordination necessary to improve upon the status quo has proven elusive. I've worked with 2 successive mayoral administrations and 2 successive parks administrations. This proposal doesn't represent the only possible future for Church Street Park, but the residents of Nashville's densest neighborhood, Church Street, are ready for a future that is better than the status quo, and so am I. This proposal at least delivers that. Benefits I care most about include leveraging the $25 million in general obligation bonds for affordable housing to create at least 100 units of permanent supportive housing, a new home for Metro's new Homeless Impact Division, and a non-duplicative homeless service center, as well as the $5 million in upgrades to Dallas Dudley Boulevard, previously Capitol Boulevard, just in time for the centennial celebration of women earning the right to vote. To me personally, to get these things while also ensuring that we don't lose park acreage downtown and that we enable another vertical neighborhood along Church Street are advantages. If the proposal fails, I need parks to be an active participant as we redouble our efforts to resolve the public health and safety issues that have emerged in the park, to better serve the population who currently congregate there, using what happens inside the library across the street as a model, including creating storage for the belongings of those who have neither homes nor access to safe storage, activating Church Street Park for the benefit of area residents, reassigning the police officers assigned to that park to improve public safety elsewhere downtown and throughout the city. And we will still need to find the resources and will to build permanent supportive housing units downtown with additional services, ideally including a home for the Homeless Impact Division, as well as securing upgrades to Dallas Dudley Boulevard. Some unsolicited proposals merit serious consideration. This is one that does. Even if this proposal doesn't go forward, the public benefits it would help the city realize will remain priorities, and it will be incumbent upon parks to help us realize them. Thank you again.
Thank you, and I'll be quick, and I want to thank my colleagues, and I want to thank you. First, let's take the homeless facility out of this. We all agree, let's do it. It's Metro money on Metro land, so let's look beyond using the facility as a screen. Let's do the homeless facility. It doesn't have anything to do with the land swap. Secondly, Church Street, I have to say, as a council person, is the people of Nashville's property. It is not any private developer's sandbox. And what you're being asked to ignore tonight is that this is a no-bid contract on Parks property being awarded by the mayor's office. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. There are RFPs everywhere tonight. Think how many times it's been mentioned on every aspect of all the proposals tonight, except on the swap. Well, why? Even Fort Negley had an RFP. If this vision is so good, use the RFP process to prove it, and that is in the ordinance governing your behavior. But the big thing is, let's take the homeless shelter out of this discussion and let's go do it. And do it as quickly as possible, and it has nothing to do with the swap. Thank you.
Any other council person would like to speak?
I'm just going to wait to the end and listen to all the comments. If
Okay, sure. All right. All right, now we'll open up for public comment. We will be very strict to the 3-minute maximum rule. So if you would like to start and people want to line up, that'd be fine. We'll have some order to this. And I know other people outside, so after you've done, you're welcome to stay, of course, but if we can have some movement, it would be good so some others can come in the room. So please start.
Good evening. I'm Howard Allen of the Nashville Homeless Underground. Some people call me the mayor of the homeless. We think that this is a smack in our face. That park is a safety net for us that don't have housing, where we can go inside the library when it's hot for air conditioning, when it's cold for heat. And it's a safety spot for us. The library just used that park 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago for the books, the book festival. But the thing of it is, this is a backdoor deal that was started by a former mayor, and this mayor is trying to fulfill this. They've talked to everybody but us in the homeless community. They know how to find me. I know Mayor Briley. I knew former Mayor Megan Berry. It's not fair. Economic advance is not the same as human progress, and this is not a deal that's good for this city. And believe me, that little park on Church Street is no Bryant Park. I lived in New York. So it might be a sandbox, but this is where some of us sit down to die. They've taken our benches up, which is just a mean thing to do just to people that are the least of thee. And let me explain something to you. We have 16% of people in the state of Tennessee living in poverty. Those that are homeless, and then they like to play with the word chronic homeless, we're below that because we sleep in tents, we sleep under bridges. Sometimes we might have to sneak and sleep in that park. But if you want to do something, if he had 200 units after he built this high-story complex at $750K, that's a one-shot deal of $150 million for 1 year. He's not doing this for free. It's not helping us. We have an affordable complex being built. It's called the jail. If he does this on 2nd Avenue, 301 James Robertson, I think you need to check. I think that's where they used to auction off slaves. We damn sure don't want to live there. If you're going to build a park, maybe you have a park recommended saying this is where they auction off slaves in such and such a time in the state of Tennessee, Davidson County. I'm asking you, I challenge each and every one of y'all, I'll be willing to take you out and let you meet some of the people that are just like you. The same thing that's in housing is out here on the street. I'm your brother. You're my sister. Give us a chance. And for you to do something for us and not do it with us, you're doing nothing for us at all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Omid Yamini. Do I have to give my whole address like at the other public hearings, or are you good with just my name? Or
I think your name and address, please.
My name's Omid Yamini. I live at 1204 North 2nd Street, Nashville, Tennessee, 37207. I've heard a lot of things. I appreciate all the presentations this evening. And a couple things that really stuck out to me were, talking about the Parks Department's mission, and I keep thinking about that. What is the Parks Department's mission? And if it is to have, parks that are accessible and for everyone, it seems to me that this park in the core of our downtown, which is one of the very last green spaces, is something that we need to hold on to. As far as the value of it, I'm seeing that over, they had that slide that showed that in the last year it's gone up $1 million in value, right? With their assessments, was that right? $1 million? Anybody? You guys, it was your numbers, right?
It wasn't my numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, it looked to me like it went up $1 million. And so when you think about that and project it forward, it seems like something that would be worth holding on to. But One thing I'd like to close with is, that my sandbox line really stuck out to me, too. I really appreciated hearing that. But, thinking about the finances of this thing and trying to get behind what motivates other people, if it's 200 luxury condos that are going up on there, let's conservatively estimate that, those are going to be, what, $750,000? Again, we're looking at this project grossing, what, about $150 million, right, for that condo building? Does that sound about right to anybody? I mean, so you think about it from their perspective. They're not doing this for us. They're not doing this for the homeless. They're doing it for themselves. And that's the bottom line. And so, I would ask you, as our Parks Department, to please stand with us, the residents and citizens of this city, and preserve our parks. And please say no to this deal. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Anderson, members of the Parks Board, Director Odom. I'm Lynn Williams, former Metro Council person and still resident of Green Hills. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for you today on the value of Church Street Park to Nashville. Under the plan before you, as I understand it, the urban park would be leveraged as capital to enable a private real estate deal and a public project. Resulting construction on that site will test the area's traffic capacity, destroy an intentionally designed viewscape, and disregard the civic value of the location and purpose of the park. In America, outside of public schools, no other public institutions enable civic involvement more than our city's libraries and parks. They are cornerstones of our democracy's social infrastructure, physical spaces that shape the way people interact. They are places where people of all profiles can gather and meet as equals. That Church Street Park is uniquely situated outside the front doors of our city's main library is no accident. I was first struck by the significance of this urban space when, as a member of the Metro Council and a national task force, I attended a dinner held in the library's grand reading room on the 3rd floor, hosted by then Mayor Bill Purcell for the board of the National League of Cities. Mayors and council members from across the nation looked in awe through the windows overlooking the park to the state capitol as Mayor Purcell described our city as the place where women's right to vote and civil rights of individuals were advanced. This narrative is important to our past and important to our future. It is supported by decisions such as we have before you now. Can you put a value on a view and a space that supports civic pride and conversations among people of all ages and persuasions, rather than as downtown real estate? Before you vote, I hope you'll visit the library's grand reading room and ask yourself this when you take in the view of the designated openness. And what value are civic conversations? So valuable that courts have held that for First Amendment purposes, city parks are considered traditional public forums where free speech rights are protected more than most, more than any other type of park. Preserving our social infrastructure is vital to nurturing civic dialogue and community cohesion. With care, this small piece of green space can become the front porch for the library's outreach, a forum for local campaign speeches, or a stage for cultural performances. Even in its shape today, I appreciate it as a patch of sunlight and air, rather than a shadow of construction with a streetscape that capitalizes on real efforts to strengthen democracy. I don't know why Church Street Park was starved of maintenance rather than reclaimed for downtown activity in recent years.
Time's up. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Lindsay Cranks, a resident of North Nashville, 37208. Many of us in this room will go home tonight to sleep in our safe, warm beds, while thousands of our unhoused neighbors will shiver in alleys, parks, campsites, storage units, and stairwells. I'm a chaplain and affordable housing advocate and have been doing homeless outreach work in Nashville for over 11 years. I've watched as our city has swept the people that they don't want to see under the rug further out of the downtown corridor, into jails, and deeper into the woods. I've watched as our city has privatized parks and public land, subsidized luxury condos and entertainment facilities, and criminalized poverty and homelessness. I think of the old tent city, of James Robertson apartments that Howard mentioned, of the previous plans for Fort Negley, of the Major League Soccer Stadium deal, money for dog and water parks, of the $12.5 million of TIF funding for the 505 development. I think of all of those things. This land swap is another one of those backroom deals that was born in the shadows. Yes, it was of the previous administration. Yes, it has addressed some of the concerns we had. Yes, we desperately need the 100 units of affordable housing in the downtown area. But this land swap also pushes people further from a place they find rest in the downtown library parks, shadows. It further gentrifies the city core. Why are there no requirements for Giarratana's development where Church Street Park currently stands for a certain percentage of affordable units in his new condos? Why hasn't the Affordable Housing Office of the Mayor's Office come up with a comprehensive plan to develop 31,000 units of affordable housing that we'll need in the next 5 years? Why does it seem like our whole city is being sold to the highest bidder? Is this truly an equitable plan? I'm not sure. I mentioned I'm a chaplain, and I want to close with a benediction to you, our Parks Board, to our city leaders, and to our development people in this room. Let us not be rich while others are destitute, nor be in good health if we don't tend the wounds of those without care. Let all those who suffer, struggle, and labor find rest. Let all those who are excluded find protection and radical inclusion. And forgive us our trespasses, because we've forgotten that our liberation is bound up with the liberation of our unhoused neighbors. We have forgotten that justice doesn't mean crumbs from the table, but a place at the table. Thank you.
Hello and happy days. My name is Joshua Rawlings. I live at 2312 Campbell Drive. When you're making a decision about what to do with a park or what product to buy, it's generally best to view the merits of the project in comparison to other projects. And so the basic point that I want to make first is that we can't really make a good decision about this particular proposal without there being contrast to other proposals. So I'm just nudging along the RFP reality that we probably should be living with. It's good to empower folks to be able to come up with new, diverse, creative ideas for that particular space. Also, I feel like there's an elephant in the room that we're not necessarily addressing, which is if the homeless population is already spending time at that park and we've got $25 million to spend on making some space, then maybe we should consider making that space right there at 600 Church Street. And I realize that there's probably some concern that it would be an eyesore and that people would, essentially there's this feeling that you don't want a concentration of homeless folks downtown. But I think that's just our fear. And if people are already using the services at the library, then maybe we should just build it there and we can use our own land. What's more, there's probably other things that we can do with the park. Like in some other cities, you see folks vending food and empowering small businesses to be able to leverage city and state property to be able to show off their wares and make some dough. And it seems like a pretty viable place for such a thing, seeing that we've got a bunch of tourists wandering around, and they would probably spend their money with like local businesses who are vending at the park. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Ingrid Mcintyre. I'm a minister in the United Methodist Church. I'm currently the pastor at Glencliff United Methodist Church in South Nashville. I'm a native Nashvilleian since 1978 and live in 37211 in South Nashville. I was struck by one of the conversations that harkened to some conversations I've had earlier this week, if not in the past 8 years. Oh, I'm also the executive director and co-founder of Open Table Nashville. We do homeless advocacy work. I had a conversation with some folks, and they wondered why people weren't just being moved into the affordable housing. And I said, what affordable housing are you talking about? I think that there is a perception in our city, for maybe people who aren't as engaged, that there's just a bunch of housing out there that some people don't want to live in, which is not true. We all know that there are waiting lists with thousands of names, right? Waiting for people to get into housing. So when we were talking earlier in this conversation, as I was listening, and people saying about the $25 million, that could be spent on so much more low-income affordable housing if the service center was built. So there are more than 100 people in Nashville who need housing, probably more like around 20,000 people right now that we think that need housing. We have been moving people into housing for about the last 8 years, and for a long period of time, we were able to move people into permanent housing at the rate of 10 to 12 folks a month. Now we are maybe moving one person in a month. So I had a pastor friend text me while we were sitting in this meeting and said, there's a woman at Wedgwood and 8th who is wrapped up in blankets and she needs a place to sleep tonight. And I said, great, if you want to take her home with you, that would be a fantastic thing to do. We know her. We have to pass her all the time. We talk to her every day almost, right, to make sure that she's okay. There's no place for her to go. There is no place for her to go. So if you would like to take her, that would be great. I feel like we've been caught in a really bad situation here with having to say, do we want park space for our friends outside the park library, or do we want a 100-unit service center where people who are the most vulnerable and have the highest barriers can go? I don't like being put in that situation, right? It's terrible. We always have to choose. Poor people always have to make really hard choices. We need the 100 units, and we also need park space for our friends to be able to rest comfortably. Our folks get run off every time they try to run off from places. Every time there's an encampment, people want it to be moved to a different place, but to where? This is their community too. There are people that we serve that have been living in Nashville longer than me. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Board. Chairman Anderson, Director Odom, the rest members. I've known many of you many years. My name is Devinder Sandhu. I live at 1709 Ashwood Avenue in the Belmont-Hillsborough area. Been a resident of Nashville for over 40 years. And I've been proud to be part of this park system for almost every one of those years. And I am joyed to go into the parks all the time. Now, in full disclosure, I want to say I've known Tony Giarratana for almost 30 years when he was scrambling around trying to park cars in downtown spaces and had the vision to develop downtown Nashville to what it is now. I think I've been on both sides of the fence with Tony. I've opposed him on certain things, and I've been for him on many things. This is one project that I think I'm for him. I have not completely studied it like I should, but I want you to know that as a resident, longtime resident of Nashville who has fought for preserving our parks, I am for this project upon further study. Now, there's a lot to be worked out in how we develop public-private partnerships. Some of you may have seen me fighting the previous mayor and administration in this RFP process for the development of the Fort Negley-Greer plan. I was greatly, greatly disappointed in how this RFP process was put out. It seems like we have to completely revamp that process so it's fair to all parties that put together a proposal. Now, the RFP is not really giving it to any one party. It's a proposal that then some member of the community consider who's most viable to win the process. And that's not always a fair process. Now, the new soccer stadium is another example of public-private partnership. The failure of the Greer Stadium, Fort Negley public-private partnership shed light on how we need to do this properly. And even though there were a lot of things in the soccer stadium that had to be that needed to be done right, one of the things that came out of this was a community benefits agreement. I know the homeless population here has been run out of Greer Stadium and Fort Negley. They've run out of many other places. I think where they need to camp out is in front of the mayor's office, so they can see them all the time. So let's give some chance to him with the community benefit agreement. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Jones. I stay on 17th Avenue North on Patterson Street. I was homeless for like 4 or 5 years. I just got my housing back. I'm here tonight to show my appreciation and support the homeless and hope everything work okay with that. And thank you for doing something about the homeless people.
Hello, all of you members of the Park Board. I am Beth Courtney, and I'm here representing Mike Schmerling, who is a neighboring property owner and originally wrote a letter to Mayor Briley on May 4th that he asked me to read tonight. And unfortunately, Mike is not able to be here tonight. Dear Mayor Briley, the purpose of this letter is to express my absolute excitement and total support for the recently announced property exchange between Metro Nashville and Tony Giarratana. Based on what has been announced to date, the idea is to create a new affordable housing facility and service center for the homeless population, and this innovative plan for solving a major problem in downtown Nashville is truly unprecedented. The plan, as described, creatively addresses multiple issues for our city. First, it combines both the relocation of a homeless gathering place in a highly dense residential area on Church Street to a far more suitable location at James Robertson Parkway. This public-private partnership is respectful and an outstanding creative response to a critical issue and is compelling. First, it repurposes a highly visible and important metro property into an ideal location for high-quality residential development. The city benefits from the addition of an otherwise zero property tax location into a strong tax revenue generating site. Obviously, this is important given the ongoing current budget struggles. Additionally, it converts a currently underutilized site into a higher and greater use for those in serious need of broad services. The homeless in our community need dignity and they need care. And this includes some of our most vulnerable and at-risk citizens. It also charges the developer with converting Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard from what is essentially a service alley into a vibrant place for all of Nashville. Importantly, my building, and we're talking about Mike Schmerling's building, the historic Castronaut building, located at 618 Church Street, is possibly the most impacted property infected by both the existing park and the proposed development proposed by Tony. Mike has owned, or I have owned, this building for over 20 years, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. Unfortunately, the Church Street Park poorly serves its population given its limited availability, day only, and due to the absence of bathroom facilities and other basic amenities that the homeless could use. Tony's proposed project, on the other hand, addresses far more needs of this important constituency in an especially sensitive and respectful way. Ironically, the proposed new building on the existing park site may obstruct some of the views from the Castronaut building or cause a temporary impediment to traffic due to its construction period. These are minor sacrifices and a small price to pay for the enormous benefits to all the constituencies.
Time's up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you all for your service on the Park Board. I know you all are all volunteers, and I appreciate that. I'm Ann Tidwell. I'm a born Vanderbilt Hospital, lived here all my life. The last at least 20 years, I've focused on parks, greenways, open space, making Nashville a more livable, wonderful place to live. And I think it is, but we have a long way to go. We do need more park space, not less. And I hate to see a park that's been a problem just destroyed. There are several other parks, as I'm sure you all are aware, that have problems, and some are homeless problems. Every time a park opens, it takes a lot of struggle and a lot of people wanting it and money and nonprofit groups making it happen. And then sometimes it's a public-private partnership. There's one in Brookmead that was a wonderful little park that celebrated Kelly's Point, historic site, and we were so happy when it opened, and now it's not good either because it's being overrun by homeless people who live there. And I know homeless people have to live somewhere, so it's just a problem that I don't know how to solve. But I don't think the solution, I hope it's not closing every park that has a problem. I'm the chairman of the Greenways and Open Space Commission, and every time we talk about a greenway, the 440 Greenway, all these wonderful plans that we have, it will be brought up. But what if? Is this a place where crime could happen? Will this make the neighbors safer or not feel safer? And it is a problem that we need to address. I don't know the solution. I do know that some cities have found a solution, and I don't know what it is, but I went to Austin, Texas, and there was a safe Ladybird trail that I could run on at 5 in the morning back when I used to do that. And so, I mean, it was safe. It was wonderful. It was clean. And I saw no homeless there. I know they're somewhere in Austin, but I would like for us to solve that solution, and I would like for us to continue to have open spaces and trees and places for people to breathe the clean air, to walk to school, to work, for business, to commute on bicycles. I think that will make Nashville even better. So thank you all.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hinton. I'm an architect and urban designer. I have no financial investment in any of this project, and I know many of you. And there are many smart and well-meaning people in this group, including designers, developers, people that have great interest in our city's success. And what has happened, what I perceive, is the whole issue of homelessness and affordable housing is getting wrapped into a land deal. I should say one thing. The Church Street project, the Church Street Park, is a disaster. It was a disaster from the beginning. It was poorly designed. There were many of us that spoke out against the design when it was first directed, put a little fountain in the middle. It was a curiosity. We knew by the width of the sidewalks and the placement of the trees, it is not going to work. It's going to end up being a magnet for people that come there that have unfortunate situations. General citizens would never go near it. They're scared to walk through it. That's not the issue. The issue is it can be fixed. The issue is design. And Bryant Park was mentioned in New York. I don't know how many of you have been to Bryant Park, but it is a fabulous place. It was just like this park in the 1970s. It was a bad place. People were scared to go there. They stayed away from it. It was changed by Laurie Olin, a wonderful landscape architect designer. This is our Bryant Park. It's in the middle of our downtown area. In fact, I would argue that it should be made as a larger park, that investment by the city may be made in buildings to the north of the park to make it a larger downtown park that is programmed so it's successful for all citizens, not just the rich, not just the rich. This is a calculated, persuasive land deal. I think you should think about public space for everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Turner. I live in one of Tony Giarratana's buildings, the Viridian. I'm an original owner, so I'm a resident of Church Street. And I want to thank, I think it was Councilman Cooper who mentioned that the 100-unit housing and service center can be completely separate from the land swap. And as a resident of Church Street, a user of the library, and a dog person, I would like to see that park remain. It's not an equal land swap. That's a triangular piece of land versus a rectangular piece. I'd like to challenge Nashville councilmen and the administration to use that park as a barometer of how we treat people and how we deal with the homeless and our parks. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tim Palmer. I live in Encore downtown. I am president of the Urban Residents Association in Nashville, representing about 400 families. And I wanted to share with you all kind of our view of the park. Let me begin by saying that my association is not unanimous about these things, but I will tell you that in May of this year we had a very detailed meeting to discuss the land swap. We had the Central Precinct officers, Commander Gordon Howie, and Community Liaison Officer Ricky Bearden there. We had representatives of the Mayor's Office on Resilience, and we had Mr. Giarratana come. And we talked at length about the problems that exist with Church Street Park and the possible solutions. If you are thinking of this as simply swapping one park for another, I want to challenge your thinking on that. Church Street Park is a failed public space. I would love to think that we could do more programming, that we could have live music there, we could have, frankly, it's not large enough to accommodate that kind of programming, and I'm not sure that Metro has the budget to do it. Church Street Park, let me repeat, is a failed public space. I know of no other park in Nashville that requires a full-time Metro presence just to ensure the safety of the residents there. That's a real concern to me. In addition to being a downtown resident, I'm a friend of the homeless. I could introduce you to my friends Robert and Cheryl, Smitty, and Deadhead, all of whom are homeless people who lived in Nashville for more than a year, and I count these people as personal friends. This board and this city needs to do more to help the homeless, I'll tell you. But Church Street Park is not the answer. We tried, and frankly, it's failed. And so I encourage you to support the land swap, to get about the business, even if it is a separate issue of having the affordable housing, and to build a park that would be useful to us down on James Robertson. Thank you very much.
I'm Grace Renshaw, and I live at 220 Mockingbird. I grew up living in 8 states and 11 cities and moved to Nashville in 1981, and it is the only hometown I've ever had, and I'm here by choice. So it has been with growing dismay that I have watched what appears to me to be basically the sale of our city to developers in various ways and means. We are currently fighting specific plan projects all over the city. The one nearest me would put nearly 400,000 square feet of office and hotel space on 1.47 acres. I mean, I almost think the earth would go down with that heavy a weight on it. And, you know, hearing a big developer call a major corridor in our downtown his sandbox makes me extremely uncomfortable. What I want to urge you to do is make this decision in context, and that's why I agree with Councilman Cooper's RFP. One thing that interested me during the presentation is that the homeless problem started getting worse after 2014. 2015 is when we started allowing all apartment complexes and condo complexes to rent an unlimited amount of their units as short-term rentals, and a number of Section 8 housing complexes were converted near the downtown area into short-term rentals. When I talk about making your decisions in context, that's what I'm talking about. You guys look at one specific project, you don't really think about the impact on everything else that that project touches. So now here we are 4 years down the road, and you guys need to build homeless housing. There may or may not be a connection, but I am at the point where I have lost faith with the Planning Commission, the planning staff, and the mayor's office, and some members of council to do what is best for Nashville residents and for Nashville's future rather than for developers and business interests. I hope you will go through an RFP process, and I hope you will look at all of the moving parts that affect this proposal and not just the cool land. So, oh boy, we can just move the park right down here and it'll all be hunky-dory. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Randy Horik. I've lived in Nashville since 1980. I'm here to ask you to vote against this proposal tonight. I realize that there are people who I see and whose opinions I respect are on the other side of the question. You heard from one of them, my good friend Devender, back here. It was thanks to Metro Parks that many years ago we had an opportunity to play City League basketball when we could still play over in Shelby Park. So we have a soft spot for Metro Parks, and there are people here who I disagree with but still deeply respect. But I think the most salient question that I've heard tonight was asked by you, Mr. Haynes, about is this really an effort to shift the homeless problem to a less visible part of downtown? And I noted the response you got from the representative from Metro was not very coherent or definitive. You didn't really get an answer on that. And that's the question I want to come back to. I think the evidence that your question was on point was in the documents I saw on Metro's website advocating for this plan. First of all, it identifies the rationale that there's 1,000 homeless people downtown. You're going to have 900 homeless people after this project is built. If I did my math right, you've only got a facility for 100. This is really shifting a problem somewhere else. The other damning evidence I found on the website was that it said these people are using these public spaces in ways they weren't intended to use. And what I thought was significant, everything you've heard tonight was about the park. But the documents I looked at also talked about the library. And it's been no secret that a lot of people want to kick homeless people out of the library. I can tell you I've been in the library the last 2 weekends, including the weekend when the Southern Festival of Books was going on, and we had a lot of out-of-town visitors, and it was orderly and it was quiet. I sat across from homeless people in the reference room who were minding their own business. I want to submit to you that the real rationale behind this is to move homeless people out of the Church Street area where they are considered an embarrassment. I know there's some public health issues that we have to address, but what I really think this is about is making them invisible and moving them to another part of town and putting a gloss on all of this by saying we're going to provide services for them. Yes, we should provide services for them. I would urge you to take Mr. Giarratana's offer. I'd urge you to take him up on it. Let somebody come up with a proposal that will deal with 1,000 homeless people downtown. You've already allocated some of the money for it. Don't let this get disguised in a land swap that is going to be for somebody's high economic benefit and make poor people invisible. I come from a religious tradition. I go to church right across the street at Mcintyre. We serve homeless people all the time. I've served homeless people in West Nashville. I've watched the way this city shifts homeless people from one part of town to the other as soon as an area gets quote-unquote gentrified. And people like to speak a lot about how public policy offends their religious values. It offends my values as a religious person to see homeless people made invisible. Thanks for your consideration.
Excuse
Mr. Chairman.
me 1 second. Does anybody need a break? Or we good? Is everybody okay? Good? Okay, please.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Ted Cromer. I live at 4309 Belmont Park Terrace. I also work for Giarratana Development. The question has come up of whether Tony Giarratana should be given a chance to work on this project. What he has done is offered a solution to a problem that has been there for a long time. In the hottest real estate market, the hotel market in Nashville's history, the immediate next-door neighbor is the Hermitage. They have offered nothing. They have offered not to do anything. They have offered no solutions. This is a concrete proposal that will solve a lot of problems. I would urge you to vote for this because I think this is a really, really good solution to a problem that no one else seems to have been paying any attention to until Tony has brought it up. I urge you with all due respect to think about the many buildings that have been built along Church Street. All of them are really, really nice buildings. I think Tony has earned, Jeff, Tony has earned the right to the respect that he can build this building. Thank you.
To the board, thank you for your time. My name is Gerald Grubb. I live at 415 Church Street, the Viridian, Unit 1514. I don't know how you'll decide, but I have some advice for you. If you do business with Tony Giarratana, he did many things well at the Viridian, but safety seems to have not been his highest priority. Let me give you 3 examples. Number 1, we have gated parking for the residents. There's no manual emergency exit on the doors to get out for one region, one area of parking. I don't understand that. Number 2, the Viridian Board, at my objection, has recently installed, and probably, I think, at Giarratana's okay, a gate that exits into the alley. The gate guards a public passageway through the Viridian. Anyone can come through. And if the wrong things happen as that gate is working or not working, like a car battery or toy battery might catch on fire, there are a lot of people in Nashville that would not be able to get out of the car and escape from this catastrophe. But number 3, in your idle time, go to YouTube. Type in kite surfing platform at the Viridian. You'll see me on there having my drone, making some wonderful video. If you can imagine, we have a 14-foot section at the south end of the Viridian pool deck, has no fencing, but a platform and steps were built up to it. And if a kid wandered off or someone was playing hide and seek and went over the edge, they would either fall about 225 feet and land on a patio below at 65 miles an hour, or they would go even further, over 350 feet, and they'd land at 100 miles an hour. It's one of the worst examples of construction that I've ever witnessed in my life. So if you do business with Giarratana, have somebody to keep up with safety. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Brandon Valentine. I live at 803 Porter in East Nashville. I rent an office downtown adjacent to the Church Street corridor. I visit Church Street Park a lot, as well as a library across the street. First, I want to say I applaud Metro for finally talking about homelessness in Nashville. It's long overdue. It's been a huge problem in our city for a long time. But I think we should make no mistake that this land swap has nothing to do with solving our homelessness problem. I think it was Vice Mayor Shulman who said earlier that this project can and should go forward. We have $25 million in the capital budget to build this project. The only skin that Tony has in this game is the potential $1 million development fee that he might donate to build this project. But what you're being asked to do is give away the only park in the most dense neighborhood in downtown Nashville. And if you give that park away, it'll be gone forever. There is no other Metro land in that neighborhood that can provide the value that that park provides. I want to remind all of you that the mission of our Parks Department and of this board is to sustainably and equitably provide a system of parks and greenways to the people of Nashville. And I think taking this park away from this neighborhood would be a grave mistake, one that's not reversible, and that will have a negative effect on the quality of life in that area for a very long time to come. Thank you, and I'd urge you to decline this proposal.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hale. I live at 912 Montrose Avenue. I didn't grow up in Nashville, but I got here as quick as I could. And I'm here to represent Neighborhood Health. I'm the CEO of that organization. We have 13 health centers, 11 here in Nashville, and we serve 31,000 patients, 5,000 of whom are homeless. So I come to you really asking you on their behalf to approve this proposal. Specifically, let me talk to you about the park that we're in question. We desperately want to serve that park. It's difficult for us to get our vans there in order to serve the homeless people, and it's persons experiencing homelessness. It's impossible for us to deploy our mobile unit there. The opportunity to serve that population better goes up immeasurably if we have the opportunity to do so. I also want to look you directly in the eye to make sure that I can communicate to you that we are 100% committed to make sure that the new homeless service center is successful. I am here to lose a lot of money. Serving homeless people who are 73% uninsured is a very expensive game. But Neighborhood Health is willing to put its resources on the line to make sure this population gets served, and we believe the way to do that is for you to approve this proposal to move forward with the Homelessness Services Center and to make sure that all of those individuals get the medical, dental, and behavioral health care they need. We're committed to that. We'll bring the resources to make sure it happens. We ask you to help make that a reality by approving this proposal. Thank you.
John Vanderhorst, 1407 Roberts Avenue, Nashville, 37206. I remember when there was a shopping center built downtown. It was torn down to build a library with the idea that securing that space directly south of the Capitol would help pave the way for public space as much as possible, connecting the Capitol down to the library as an extension of Legislative Plaza. I think it would be irresponsible of the Park Board to approve this deal at this time before it undergoes a comprehensive view of that entire block. If there is a new high-rise now built in that space, that pretty much knocks out the opportunities for the entire area to be redeveloped otherwise for maximizing the value of public space. And I think, like Hem said, it is a design issue, and I think that we have not had the best design expertise applied to that space. I think that's an understatement. Why can't we do that? Why can't we have high-quality design applied to that entire area? The whole area needs to be looked at more comprehensively, and so I don't think that this piecemeal plan helps develop a comprehensive plan for that entire area that maximizes the value for the entire public space that we have downtown. Details that add to that are that the park space proposed is very low value for park space, and the using management that has high-end experience for low-end housing is not exactly what we would necessarily want to do if we viewed the development of affordable housing more comprehensively. So I think it has a number of problematic components to this. This is a situation that you are going to expect more of if we continue to take a piecemeal approach to the development of Nashville. This is a classic case. And so it seems like we're always faced with, do we approve something or not, based on some good aspects to it, and then we have to put up with other bad aspects. I think we can do better. I think we ought to do better. We need to be dealing with the entire homeless issue, not taking 10% of it and dealing with it in some way. I think this is an opportunity to deal with it more comprehensively, but you've got to play your part to say no at this time to this project. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Scott Chambers. I live at 2708 Wortham Avenue, 37215. Many of my points have been made, so I won't labor those, but I'm happy this slide is still up because to me it shows a couple interesting things. One, on the right, at the top you have before, at the bottom you have after. That perspective is from Church Street Park. If you went across the street and showed that same thing, you would switch those two around. You're taking away green space and putting in a building. I'm also curious, I see just to the north of the site is a vacant building, a parking lot, a building, and another vacant building. Imagine that being developed and Church Park, Street Park being there. I don't know of a single city in the country where real estate on a park is not more valuable. The tax dollars that get generated, I think, through developing that site
could do well to begin to chip away at this offer that's on the table. And I would also ask that we not confuse this proposal with an RFP. Like Fort Negley, a developer came to the city with an idea. The city embraced it as a good one, put out an RFP. The long and short of that was the public decided it shouldn't be developed. I think in this case, we could save a lot of heartache by considering perhaps that this shouldn't be developed. Heaven forbid we go out to an RFP, and after all of that, we decide what we really need is a park. And I strongly feel that we do. So thank you very much.
My name is Ann Butterworth. I live at 415 Church Street, and I have been downtown of Nashville since late '09. Since I believe the purpose of this hearing was for those matters that your board you can consider, I will try to stick to those. I reviewed your master plan, in which it states that you are to be increasing the number of pocket parks. There's been the discussion that this is not a loss of space, but as I saw the original appraisal, it was a loss of 1,500 square feet. The revised appraisal dropped it to 836, which in the downtown area is a pretty nice sized condo. So I'm not sure why we're saying there's not a in the swap of the land. I may have misread that, but that's what it appeared to me. Also, I read through your open space plan, and on page 6 it talks about the creation of new small parks in the downtown area. It also says you're to look towards doubling the downtown tree canopy. And on this proposal, as it is right now, there'll be a net loss of trees. There are only 2 trees on the other parcel, and there are at least 28 trees on the Church Street parcel. Also on page 141 of your master plan, I believe it recommends that there is a downtown park master plan, and I could not find one. So I wasn't sure if this proposed action is consistent with that. On page 7 of the appraisal report for the JRP property, it talks about concerns with the traffic. It also indicated that the highest and best use for that land is what it is currently at. So I would have concern about a park where you already had someone looking at the land expressing concern with the traffic on the side of the parcel. In the agreement for the exchange in the 4th whereas paragraph, it refers to public park or other open space. So I wasn't sure what was intended by that. And other people pointed out different comments on issues that I don't believe you have before you, but for example, with the proposed use of Church Street, adding 200 units and 300 persons, I haven't heard anyone discuss the impact on traffic. Church Street, I don't know if any of you have attempted to come downtown. When there's an event, the traffic on Church Street is very difficult. Also, there was a statement that homes solve homelessness. I would disagree with that statement. Services and housing and shelter help with homelessness. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Zeitlin. I live at 404 Taylor Street. I'm a 4th generation Nashvilleian and love this city. What this city and this board and previous boards before you have done to improve the quality of Nashville is incredible. You should commend yourself on the added parks, greenways that we have as a city. It is truly one of the uniquely and special things over the last 20 years that has turned what was a really good city into a great city. And parks are incredibly important. Pocket parks are incredibly important. It's unfortunate that the success that this board, the park system, the city have had is probably 99%. One of those exceptions is Church Street Park. And it's not because of the lack of trying. There have been numerous designs, numerous tries by the mayor's office, the council, various parks boards. Unfortunately, Church Street Park has failed. This proposal before you tonight not only creates a substitution of a park that can be designed, programmed to create a better park. Although it is not a public park, the Ann Dallas Boulevard will act as a park in a sense to the neighborhood because it will create engagement, areas for dogs, areas that currently is not being served by Church Street. I would ask that this board look at the positives before you as it relates to the park system and vote yes for this proposal.
Good evening. My name is Pat Williams. I live at 4301 Elkins Avenue in Sylvan Park. And I speak not only for myself tonight, but for a friend who just recently retired from the Downtown Public Library, worked for the Nashville Libraries all her life, most of it downtown. What I have to say has nothing to do with dollars at all. It has to do with green space. I grew up a block down the street from where the park was created on 12 South when I was 8 years old. I lived in that park. My sister and I were down there every day we could be down there. When my kids were growing up, I took them camping all over the state. We hiked, we camped whenever we had a chance. Aside from that, in the last few years, I served on the board of the Richland Creek Watershed Alliance for several years. And I learned so much by doing that I didn't know about the green space that I loved. We need to preserve every square foot of pervious green space that we can to absorb stormwater. That is so important. It will prevent flooding. So fix Church Street Park. Please fix the park and keep it green. Thank you.
Hello. My name's David Coulomb, and my wife Lucy couldn't make it today. I represent two people that live on Church Street. Also, I consider us proudly refugees from New York City. And we came here for several reasons. Great health facilities, a top-tier university, actually a student body that was friendlier than my alma mater, which I won't mention, well, University of Michigan. And for people who were friendly on campus in New York. I am very familiar with Bryant Park, and the person that spoke about making the Church Street Park a Bryant Park is totally irresponsible. Cannot be done. And I would encourage you to think about Philadelphia, Rittender Park, Grant Park in Chicago, Madison Square Park, which the company I worked with converted it, as much as said, from a mess into a place where, can't substantiate this, I would say easily 400 to 500 baby carriages are strolling through that park every day. Tai Chi, Shake Shack, and they rotate the grass, access to the grass so people can be on it. And that's a community park. And I would encourage all of you to really understand that so far at the parks we've made steps, but our parks are not even approximately close to being really community, where the lawns are filled with people, kids, and frisbees, and all kinds of wonderful things. The current park is not capable of being a park or a pocket park. Also, it creates immense problems for people that live not with just in that block, but it goes to the perimeters, such that just sheer issues at night. And I've sent pictures to the mayor of people in disrobed states laying in front of the church, and you end up walking in the street to avoid. The police can't handle it, and it's an entirely misappropriation of police talent. My key point, I think, is, and it's the issue is generally it happens in political worlds, and I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan for a long time too before, that generally the first idea, a great idea gets attacked, and it's put out there. We have been here since 2010, and the parks has not gotten better. It's only gotten worse. And for public safety, I don't think any of you would take your grandchildren and let them sit on that grass. I don't think any of you would feel comfortable in having your wife walk across there at night. It's not safe. Tony Giarratana has produced a reasonable step, and the most important thing, and it's a step, and we've got to acknowledge step. I understand that the step is we're going to address 100 people that didn't have help and for 8 years. And if you ignore that, that's sad.
Hi, I'm Morgan Stingle. I am the project manager for Giarratana Development, but I'm not speaking to you as a representative of Giarratana. I'm speaking to you as a resident of downtown. I grew up in Green Hills, lovely place to grow up. I was very lucky to grow up in a great neighborhood that does not have the complex issues facing downtown right now. I'm going to speak to you in a series of non sequiturs because I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I'm very passionate about this, as are everyone in the room. 2 years ago, I was attacked by a resident of the park at Church Street, and that's where it became personal. I was attacked during the weekday walking home from work about 5:30 p.m. I have a good friend and high up in the police department that was there, came to my aid, and it just set off this series of conversations. Freddie O'Connell called me the next day, Tom Turner, Tony, we all just said, we've got to do something. My event didn't, precipitate all of this, but, at that point it really became personal for our organization. I had a semi-concussion for a couple days. It could have been worse, but I now live downtown. I'm out the door to go on a run 5 a.m. every morning. I walk my dog morning, noon, and night. I don't feel safe downtown, and I know the homeless people don't feel safe either. The conditions are such that, I'm going off my notes, I'm sorry. It's just gotten to a point where it's more humane to do nothing. No one is helping the homeless people, but at the same time, we're talking about, yes, the Homeless Service Center with the funds appropriated can be done on its own. Let's restore the park. It sounds great, but we've already admitted tonight that there are no resources to restore the park to Bryant Park condition. This plan offers the capital injection that gives us an opportunity to finally do all of these things that we want to do, because what we want to do is not possible. The money's not there. The city doesn't have it. We have a new appraisal on the park that contemplates the Hermitage involvement. The appraisal assumes that those buildings behind are part of a big, grander development, but it doesn't factor in the proposed future development prospects for the James Robertson site. So actually that site's a lot more valuable than vacant land or a parking lot as the plan anticipates. I'm sorry. Done. Okay, thank you. No.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brenda Sanderson. I'm here with my husband, Rubel. We have owned businesses in downtown Nashville for 25 years. We've lived downtown since around 2000, and we've lived on Church Street since 2007. When I came here tonight, I had some thoughts in my head that I really wanted you to understand what it's like to live near this park. But I also wanted to make you understand, too, that I hope you're not misguided by somebody that thinks that a developer doing something shouldn't make some money off of something. I think that's irrelevant to all this. There's no reason anybody's going to do anything if they don't get something out of it. So there is something really big in this, in my opinion, for the homeless population. We are not doing them any good, allowing them to just live in this park. If we only have 100 of them, that's 100 that we helped. So let's think about that. That's really, really important. The park as it is now, as Mr. Coulomb has said, that you wouldn't want to take your children there. I have 6 granddaughters between the ages of 7 and 12. I would not take them to that park. I don't even want to walk them next to the park. That is unfortunate. And I'm not saying that to be mean about the people who are there. Let's help those people. And we can do it with a service center. This is a start. Like I say, if there's 1,000 of them on the street or 10,000, whatever it is, I know there's a lot. There's a lot of people that need to be helped in this community. This is a good start. Mr. Giarratana came up with an idea. He's the first one that came here and really gave us an option. You have some good options here. Let's really think about moving forward with this land swap. We have other park areas. Maybe we need to work on them too, have better enforcement for those parks. But right now, as it is, Church Street Park cannot be used by the majority of the residents the way it is now. Yes, some will go walk their dog there, and some are brave enough to walk through. But you're not going to take your child there, your granddaughter, or probably your grandson, and maybe not your wife or your mother. So think about that. And we're a great city. We can do better. We can do better than this. So I'm very passionate about doing something there. And I'm also passionate about helping the homeless. And I think this is a win-win for all of us. It's a good plan. Let's move forward with it.
Good evening. My name is Bobby Smith, and I live at 736 Woodmere Drive, which is in South Nashville near the airport. But I also work at Mcintyre United Methodist Church with the Restoration Point, which is a nonprofit that was started several years ago. This nonprofit provides daily services for the homeless that reside in the park, along with being in the library on a daily basis. We provide clothing, a meal, and also temporary housing to help 8 homeless guys to transition out of homelessness and hopefully into a residence. Taking away the park, which is a convenience for them to get to the churches, walking across the street to get those services, what will that impact be? And that's my concern. What will that impact be when they are moved several, I'm not sure how far it is, for the new park, but, the point is that's going to create a barrier for them in terms of getting these services that, we're providing right now. And I would say the church is open for partners. I heard a gentleman come up and said that he was with the health department and providing health, that he couldn't get his vehicles there, his mobile unit. The church is available to bring that service into the church. We have space in there to be able to do that. Tony, we're in the process of renovating the kitchen so that we can provide more meals. Now, if the homeless is not there and we're putting about $50,000 into this renovation, is that a waste of time and a waste of money? But we do need partners to help in that situation. When we saw the 505 building going up next door, every day we were serving the homeless. And this is what this restoration point is about. And I just wanted to say I'm not either for or against, but I'm only concerned of the convenience that we're providing for the homeless there every day. And if they are moved from that, what would that create for them in terms of their ability to get the services that the Restoration Point and McKendree United Methodist Church has provided. So I thank you for your time and your ears. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Turner, President of Nashville Downtown Partnership. I live at 4321 Prescott Road. Makes it easy for me to remember. We consistently compare our downtown to other cities across the country, peer and aspirational cities both, assessing what works well, what doesn't work well, why not, and what we need for a vibrant urban core. So we've experienced great growth in recent years. We're kind of in a catch-up scenario on a lot of the basics for a healthy center city. As an example, standard benchmark, we need about 2% of the MSA living downtown. So if that gives you an idea, it really means we got a long way to go between here and a balance of equilibrium of supply and demand. Based on population growth right now and housing starts, our entire market, we're 13,000 units short. So we need more housing every level. Luxury, workforce, and supported service housing. We started supported service housing first in 2011. We've done it consistently for 7.5 years. The barriers are housing and supportive services, two things that we don't have a lot of. So a vibrant urban core includes great public places that are clean, safe, and accessible for everyone. I think accessible for everyone is important. Bryant Park is accessible for everyone today as it was 25 years ago. It is a public park. It's not a private park. It also happens to be 40 times larger than Church Street Park. There's a significant difference when you're trying to program 9.5 acres or you're trying to program 1/4 acre. Try it in your yard. Great public places are pedestrian friendly. They have active streetscapes, great neighborhood amenities, and all of these things are tied together. In a healthy market, they exist in a balance, developed through true partnerships amongst a variety of entities and constituents, and they generate a net present value and a net future value for the neighborhood and the community. And we believe the opportunity to create that balance and build on a healthy, vibrant core is here today. We support the proposal, and thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Good evening. I'm Judy Tackett, the Director of the Homeless Impact Division of Metro Social Services. Thank you for doing this audit, and thank you for Ms. Odom for working with us on a lot of the issues that affect also parks. Our goal is to bring expertise to the city and work with a cross-sector system and partners in all sectors to create an effective housing crisis resolution system. When we talk about housing crisis resolution system and building that, our community needs to think long-term. When we talk about solutions, that will take some time to address. But a lot of times when I get phone calls, it's about issues of, can you help right now? Can you move people from away, out of sight? And so with that, I really want to point out I'm in support of this project. And as one of the reasons I'm in support of it is because it looks the way it's packaged and proposed right now, it includes the consideration for solutions for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. These are our neighbors. If we look at solutions in addressing homelessness in our city, we need to think big. We need to think how we look at solutions, and that is housing. So people that lose their housing, parks is not an appropriate entry point. And that's why it's important for me to really point out that in this package, having 100 units of permanent supportive housing, which we are in dire need in this community, will really make a difference for building this approach. And also answering some of the questions that came up here about are we shifting people from one location to another. We will if we don't include that focus on solutions. So I'm in support of this proposal, and thank you so much.
My name is Steve Ryder. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I apologize for that. I have to tell you that I stand in opposition to this project. I don't think it's in the best interest of the community at all. I certainly don't think it's in the best interest of the homeless. We have pocket parks all over town. They're open to everybody, and that includes the homeless. We do not go out there and just say parks are only for certain social economic groups. That's not what they're there for. They're there to serve the community for everybody. Now, if somebody doesn't like Church Street Park, that's their problem. And I'll tell you something, a person who came up here and said she had a terrible experience there, I can't figure out how that happened at 5:30 in the afternoon. There are cameras there. There's 2 police officers there all the time. How could you go out and be attacked and have a concussion? And we didn't hear anything about it in a report. I call the parks boards all the time. I didn't hear anybody report an incident that happened there with something like that happened in Church Street Park. Because, frankly, they're scare tactics that are going on. People are scared of homeless. And all I can say to the audience is, you know, if you'd go out and volunteer at Room at the Inn and help be a part of the solution, you wouldn't be scared of homeless people. They're human beings just like everybody else. They put on their pants. They struggle just like everybody else in this room. And they're human beings, and we have to go out and recognize that. We are shifting people from one spot to another because, frankly, we don't have solutions. We don't have the housing. We're not anywhere near it. And we put up a lot of short-term rentals that have taken a lot of affordable housing out. There's not any simple solutions, but this doesn't do it. But one of the things that I really think is really important for this board to understand is that you have to come out there and tell people in the audience that the parks are open to everybody, not just a few, not to people with baby strollers, not people who just want to play Frisbee. Because if we start shutting down parks because there's the presence of homeless people, we're going to be shutting down a lot of parks in this city. And you know it, and I know it. And a lot of people are going to go out there and say, if you did this to Church Street Park, come on over to Reservoir Park, come over to my park, come over to this park, and get rid of those people. That's not the solution. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Hi, my name is Candida Silvania, and I actually work for 505, and I live there. One thing I really want to elaborate is that park, it is the center of this area. The thing this is what I want to bring up. When I was a little girl, my mom left my father. We were in a park when I was a child. That was one of the scariest times of my life because I remember sitting on a bench with my brothers and my siblings, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, how is my mom going to get out of this situation? Wow, here I am. I don't know where my dad's at. I don't know what to do. We have a solution to people that don't know what to do. People that go and sit there night for night. I walk by there as well. I walk my dogs in that area. I don't feel comfortable. And this is from somebody that has sat in that spot. Not in that exact spot, but has sat in that spot. This is something that our community needs. I live in this area. I cannot express how much I would love to be able to walk out my door with my dogs or walk down the street and feel comfortable. I do not at all. And this is from somebody that has been in those shoes. If I knew my mom or if I knew my brother or someone or any of your family members, if they were in that situation and they were able to get help, you would want them to. You would want them to find somewhere that they can. I wholeheartedly believe in this swap. This is something that we need for this community and for all of Nashville. We need to start with something like this. And then after this, something else even better will happen. People will come together, and I wholeheartedly believe that, and I really hope that you guys do too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John O'Neill. I live in the Meridian, 415 Church. Before I make my pitch on why I think this is a good deal, I'm outraged that somebody would stand in front of you and say, accuse this young lady of making up a story to scare you guys. And like I said, I live in a Viridian. I'm happy to live in a Viridian. Everybody I know is happy to live in a Viridian. We wouldn't be there if we were not happy to be in a Viridian. And the suggestion that Tony builds unsafe buildings is equally outrageous to me. Having said that, I've been in the other room listening tonight, and people keep making the argument that we're doing away with this jewel of a park that's downtown here, and we need to save our parks. I'd make the argument that we're saving parks by doing the swap. I don't believe that Church Street Park, given the resources of the city, is savable. I really don't. I've been hearing for years that we should do something, and it's just not happening. So I'll make the argument that we're not losing a park by doing the land swap, we're gaining a park. And that's it.
Hi, I'm Tracy Pekovich. I reside at 7277 Charlotte Pike on the west side, 37209 zip code. I've been a resident of Nashville for 20 years now, and I, like many, many other folks that are new to this city, have watched the city grow. It looks very, very different. 20 years ago, I described it to my Midwestern family of a town of 2,000 people as a big, small city. And there was a lot of comfort to me in moving to a city like this. It's no longer a big, small city, right? I tell my family often, I'm not so sure I would move to Nashville today if 20 years ago if it looked like it did today. I'm fortunate because I've been able to grow with the city, and so it's a little more comfortable to me in that regard. I use the public city parks, greenways. I love to work out. I enjoy going for a walk, and so I appreciate the work that you all do to keep the parks in good condition. I work at the Mental Health Cooperative. I'm a program manager for our Homeless Services Division. And I work day in and day out with case managers and outreach workers. I partner closely with the Homeless Impact Division and others that have stood up here tonight. And so to stand here and think that this is a solution, I don't know that it is, right? I don't think this is the solution. But what I am encouraged by is the fact that it's a start. And while the population of homeless in our city far exceeds 100 that we might be able to house with a project like this, it's a start. And being an athlete in my years past, I believe in momentum. I believe in you got to start somewhere to get some momentum going. And so with that, I do support the idea of a land swap. I do support the idea, like the gentleman said before me, that we're not really losing something. We have to gain efficiency with what we have. And I think this is potentially a very smart way to look at what we have. I'm excited that we have somebody that has resources that could maybe make an investment. And maybe, who knows, maybe 100 units today or next year grows to 500 units later. Maybe this is something that we can build momentum and set a precedent for so that all of those homeless individuals that deserve a place to live, it shouldn't be a park bench. It shouldn't be it should be a house, right? It shouldn't be a tent in a park. But if we can start with 100 and set a precedent and start there, and that gets us momentum, then I think it's worth considering. So thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Eliza. I'm the sales and event manager for Morton's The Steakhouse. So I'm literally downtown at the park every day. I actually have a condo about a block away from the park as well on Polk Avenue. Whenever I moved in there in 2012, I'd walk through the park and I'd usually get a compliment. These days, it's cussing, it's fighting, it's carrying on. Although the police are present, they are different police officers every day. It's kind of like having a substitute teacher in your classroom. They don't know who the bad kids are. So there are problems in the park, and it can be the same person day after day, and I don't believe the police know who it is because they're switching out. And it's the shit shift that nobody wants. I do not walk my dog over there. I actually go to the state capitol. The state capitol is a beautiful green space that everyone can go to. People do workout classes there. You can lay on the grass over there. That is the green space that a downtown resident would use. I think the swap is a great idea because, according to what I've heard, the new jail is going to have a mental health facility in it. Then if the homeless people do go over there, they'll be closer to a resource. All the downtown corners are changing, and all the new builds have actually been great. The new federal courthouse is coming across the road from us, and the Nashville Yards. So if we don't accept this proposal, which I think we should, we can do patio seating on Andala Studley. I'd love that. If this proposal isn't accepted, you're going to have to do something soon because the federal courthouse is coming, and it's not going to last the way it is now. So appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Ron Wise. I live in Old Hickory. Have a business there also. So what dog do I have in this hunt? I have a corporate condo downtown for my guests, for my employees from out of town. And I use the condo a lot to go to dinner, to sporting events and other things. And I would say that since I've lived in Nashville since 1976, and Nashville was horrible at that time when I moved here, and has done nothing but improve. And people like Tony have improved Church Street tremendously. And I notice a lot of people have walked up here and said Tony by his name. And I appreciate the fact that Tony's an entrepreneur, that he is the name and the face of the company. He's not some outside investment group from Boston or New York. He's here and he's involved in the community. And I know from a mutual friend of ours, I didn't hear the story from Tony, heard it from my mutual friend, that when Tony came to Nashville, my friend found him at the YMCA and took him home for dinner. And Tony, I don't know if you were homeless, but you must have been hungry. So they took you and fed you. But I'm a big picture guy. At the end of the day, you on this board, you have to decide what to do about this park space. And this forum tonight has been, it's covered everything from Airbnb, Public Works, and the homeless. But by and large, what's going to be the end of this? Well, if you approve this measure and Tony builds this nice building downtown, and he builds a nice park, a tenth of a mile away, I believe it was, and you end up with a homeless shelter that helps at least 100 people, plus the processing of the other 900, then it's a benefit for the city. And I think it's a step in the right direction for the city, and I'd like to see the board approve this.
Excuse me one second. Are you going to speak also? So we'll have two more, and then if any council... All right, let's try to... If anybody's going to speak, go ahead and get in line so we know where we are, and then I think we have a council person that wants to speak. And then
I'm losing my voice. Pardon me, laryngitis. R.J. Stillwell. I live at 555 Church Street, the Cumberland. We share that intersection. We're the closest vertical community to this park. I've lived there for 15 years. For 10 years, I've served on the Homeowners Association Board of Directors. I give of my time, talent, and treasure to the homeless. I care deeply about it. I serve on the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. We serve over 4,000 young people who are at risk, many of whom are homeless. But I will tell you, from living downtown for 15 years in this building, this is a failed park. There can be no parallel made to Bryant Park. I spent a lot of time in New York. My brother lives across the street from Bryant Park. That is a 9+ acre property that is beautifully managed. This is approximately a quarter of an acre, and it can never be managed as has been proposed. Tony Giarratana is a visionary. He's helped redevelop Nashville into a 24/7 city. He has been instrumental in so many major corporations relocating here and providing a huge tax base, much of which goes to our education. I am a huge supporter of what's been proposed for several reasons. The proposal requires no tax breaks for Metro. Mr. Giarratana has waived traditional developer fees on the construction of the homeless facility. Mr. Giarratana will contribute $2 million toward development of the new park, contribute $5 million toward the redevelopment and management of Dallas Dudley Boulevard, formerly Capitol Boulevard, which is totally underutilized. And the land swap involves 2 parcels of the same size with similar appraisals. I think this is a tremendous asset to the downtown corridor. And on behalf of the 289 homes in our vertical community on the same corner, we're in support of Mr. Giarratana's proposal. Thank you.
My name is Bill Hobbs. I live in Green Hills, but I work downtown a lot. I have been downtown a lot doing photography, including doing some photography for Mr. Giarratana, so you know where I stand. A couple things I'd like to say. The first is that I've known Morgan Stengel, the young lady who shared the concussion story with you, for several years because of my work with, for Mr. Giarratana. She's a straight shooter. She wouldn't lie, and the man who said that owes her a personal apology. My second comment is I've lived in Nashville since 1982. I'm old enough to remember when there were 2 vacant buildings on that lot, and nobody wanted to build anything on Church Street. And one night the buildings caught fire because some homeless people were squatting inside. And that is the only reason that land actually became available to be turned into a park, because some abandoned buildings burned to the ground. Homelessness at that park and that space has been causing problems for more than 2 decades. My other comment is some people have talked about homelessness has just become an issue at the park in the last 4 years. I was actually assaulted about 7 years ago near the park. I managed to capture a picture of the person who did it. I posted it on my Facebook. Someone who recognized him and knew his lawyer contacted the lawyer. The lawyer called me and begged me not to file charges because that person had assaulted someone else at Church Street Park a few years earlier, and I chose not to file charges. I wasn't hurt real bad, but I was accosted and assaulted. So that park has been a problem essentially since it was built, and this proposal solves that problem, and it solves it in a way that benefits the city, the homeless, and the residents of Church Street. I urge you to pass it.
Good evening, Jim Murphy, 1600 Division Street. I represent Historic Hotels of Nashville, the owner of the Hermitage Hotel. A couple of misperceptions I want to clear up. One, those buildings that are shown as vacant aren't vacant. They're office buildings that are occupied. Second, I think one of the commenters made the comment that the Hermitage Hotel had not made a proposal to solve this problem. Of course we haven't. There hasn't been a process open to other people to make proposals, and so as a result, no one else has made one. There's clearly problems with this park. There's clearly problems with the homeless situation in Nashville. But the problem with this proposal right now is there's really not sufficient details on what all is involved in the plan to really know if this is the best deal for Metro and for this board. The land swap agreement provides that Mr. Giarratana commits to up to $5 million in improvements to Dudley Dallas Boulevard and Dallas Dudley Boulevard. I get that wrong. Excuse me. But without a plan for those improvements at this point, you don't know what the dollar value of that commitment really is. And in looking at Metro's analysis that this is a $6 million benefit to Metro, $5 million of that is based on a plan to improve that road that doesn't exist. So without that plan, you really don't know what the value of that commitment is because, again, that's an up-to commitment with no minimum. There's no minimum commitment in the land swap agreement on that item. So if that commitment is not worth the $5 million, then you're not getting $6 million in value. We heard about Parks Department's plans for the replacement park, which don't exist. So No one knows what the replacement park will look like and what it will cost. What happens if it's going to cost more than $2 million? Are you going to make that up? How is that going to be handled? None of those questions have been answered because they can't, because you don't have the plans in place for that. Obviously, one of the concerns with the replacement park is if you just have a minimal park like the current Church Street Park, you're going to relocate the population from Church Street to the James Robertson Parkway location. And what benefit does that provide to the community? You're just moving the problem around. We've talked about, one of you asked about traffic at that location at 301, and the response was, well, we're looking at that. But without knowing the answers to those things, you don't really know at this point whether that park will be accessible to people, because I used to park in the public square garage, and in the afternoons that whole area is gridlocked. So for those reasons, this proposal is not ready for prime time, and you should reject it. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. I think you're starting to feel what council feels like, right, on a late night with a public hearing. I'm Councilwoman Angie Henderson. I serve District 34 in Southwest Nashville, which includes the entire Warner Parks, and I currently serve on the council's Parks, Library, and Arts Committee, and was the former chair. I have been listening to the community, taking notes as to the various kind of pros and cons and assertions, and so if I can, I just want to kind of go through some things that I've heard that I hope as you all consider this proposal before you will revisit and give more intention and thought to. The good work regarding the Homeless Service Center, while very much appreciated and needed, is irrelevant to the determination of whether the Parks Board should dispose of Church Street Park, whether Church Street Park should, by your determination, cease to exist. A proponent said earlier that there have been numerous designs, numerous efforts. I would assert that is false, and encourage your board to ask park staff, have we really tried? Have we done our best at this location? Mr. Cross earlier spoke to something that Councilman Cooper had alluded to in your policy 3000.29 governing your work for the last 40 years. And, you know, I respect his interpretation, but I would ask you to look at that section again and consider what the spirit of that is for an open and competitive process for the exclusive use of metro parks and the protection of public assets requires an RFP. The process allows Metro to identify a problem or a need and the proposers to offer both prices and plans for a solution that is consistent with the general land use plan and the park's countywide master plan. So I would assert that we should not just assume that because this park has languished for so long and has so many challenges that we should just swap it and get rid of it. Mr. Haynes, Board Member Haynes, was on point when he inquired about the James Robertson Parkway property, mentioning it being a tenth of a mile away from the large and successful public square park. It is, in fact, immediately adjacent. It is right next door. So when we have a large, successful, well-programmed, frequently used park and asset there, why would we then, albeit, you know, having the walk shed as indicated, it's not an apples for apples or an equal swap in that you are just getting another parcel that you then have to program and maintain immediately adjacent to what is already a wonderful, significant asset that is in that same walk shed, 10-minute walk shed that Mr. Kelsey spoke to. Additionally, I will concur with what others have said. It is an awkward triangular parcel with a traffic island through it and next to a public garage near the public bus station on a 4-lane parkway. Church Street is a traffic-calmed, walkable streetscape environment, a 2-lane road. James Robertson Parkway is a 4-lane high-speed parkway. And so just to call those an equivalent swap, I would encourage you to look at that further. So again, the Homeless Service Center on a separate metro-armed parcel that we already have does not require this deal. And Dallas Dudley Boulevard improvement does not require this deal. We do not have to create a complex, multifaceted deal to solve these problems. So beware the smoke and mirrors and the obfuscations. Respectfully, the primary catalyst or motivation for this deal is profit for Mr. Giarratana. So I would encourage the Parks Board, the Parks Department, the Council, the downtown community, the downtown partnership. Let's follow our taxpayer-funded strategic plans and set goals based on them. Let's set our funding priorities. Parks are indeed underfunded, but we just passed at Council a $351 million capital spending plan. So we can put these things in our capital spending plan, right? We can address these things. It's about political will. It's about priorities. I agree with Councilman O'Connell, who ably serves this district and has tried very hard to bring intention to this conversation to achieve a solution at this location for all the residents who are rightly frustrated with this. This is not a great park for everyone. And so Councilman O'Connell said no more status quo at this park. No more letting it languish. Let's have a community-led design effort with true intention. Let the community lead, and you all show your leadership as well in the mission that you have. And please do not follow Mr. Cross's encouragement that you are just a recommending body to the council and that we can overrule you, and so you should just, kind of stamp this and send it on. I can tell that you all care about this very much. I appreciate your questions, and I would encourage you to inquire more, and let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you. So, before we close, are there any park board members who would like to say anything?
So, Angie, I'm going to turn it back on you and challenge the council people here. This issue has now been brought before us. 30 years ago, we wouldn't have had this debate. We didn't have a healthy downtown, and quite honestly, this issue is not about Tony. Tony and Tom Turner and others have helped shape our downtown. Tony's contributed significantly, so he shouldn't be part of this decision. The decision for the council is, are you all going to give resources needed to the Parks Department that we desperately, desperately need to activate not only Church Street Park, but parks all across the city? And are we going to get the resources needed to solve the homelessness problem? So, and I'm not asking you to come up. I'm just saying we're going to turn the challenge back on you after we make our decision. And the mayor's office as well. We've got to make a very difficult decision. This is not about Tony. This is not about this particular park. This is about the city council and the mayor's office giving this department the desperate resources they need.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone else? Well, we'll close. I want to, on behalf of the whole board, thank everyone for the input tonight. It was very helpful, and we will proceed from here. So the public hearing is officially closed. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.